Haiwan walks home in the dead of night, wondering how her life fell apart. Her existence is a miserable cycle of exhaustion, working a company job by day and a part-time gig by night. It's after 2 a.m., but rest is a luxury she can't afford. Dangerous debt collectors are constantly threatening her over her mother's loans. Adding to her misery is her sleazy boss, a man with a daughter her age, who won't stop his inappropriate advances. She feels angry and helpless, completely trapped by her circumstances. As Haiwan walks, her thoughts are filled with resentment. She's paying for a massive debt she never benefited from, cursing the state of her life. Her mind drifts back to her mother, whom she saw as a parasite constantly dragging her down. Even as a child, she was hounded by angry debt collectors because of her mother's actions. She had worked so hard to escape that life, but a joint guarantee contract had sealed her fate. Trapped with no way out, Haiwan stops walking, looks to the sky, and wishes for it all to end. Just as Haiwan wished for her painful reality to finally end, a man's frantic shout for her to move shattered the night's quiet. Before she could process the warning, he slammed into her, knocking her hard to the pavement. Dazed, she sat up, clutching her throbbing head and wondering why he had charged at her like that. Her eyes then fell to the ground, where a dark red substance was quickly pooling around her feet. Confused, she stared at this strange liquid, trying to comprehend what she was seeing. Her gaze turns to horror as she realizes the red pool is blood. Her eyes dart to a nearby alley, drawn by the commotion. Hiding behind a wall, Haiwan watches as a man is pinned to the ground, begging for his life. Another man, with an air of cold authority, demands to know who told him to betray them. The kneeling man pleads, reminding his boss of his 10 years of service. Haiwan freezes, knowing instinctively that if they discover her, she will meet the same terrible fate. The man in charge gave a cold command to get rid of the body and clean up the mess. Haiwan watched in horror. They had just ended a man's life. Her mind screamed at her to run, but her body was frozen with fear. As she finally tried to sneak away, her heart sank. Her phone, which must have fallen earlier, lay on the pavement in plain sight. Before she could react, a hand grabbed her hair, yanking her from the shadows. The boss demanded to know why she was hiding, and Haiwan pleaded, swearing she saw nothing. A man asked his boss, Juhyun, what they should do, certain that Haiwan had witnessed everything. Juhyun calmly admitted it was his mistake, saying he should have been more cautious. Trembling on the ground, Haiwan desperately pleaded that she truly hadn't seen a thing. He silenced her by gripping her chin, his hand stained red. He remarked on her terrible luck. The terrifying truth hit her. This man was responsible for the scene in the alley. She stared in horror, wondering what would happen to her now. Haiwan trembled, certain she was about to meet the same fate as the man in the alley. Instead, Juhyun had other plans. He calmly ordered his subordinate to take her to his house. Before Haiwan could scream, a hand covered her mouth, and she was effortlessly carried away. Juhyun watched them go, privately annoyed at the terrible timing of their meeting. Haiwan awoke bound in a strange place, desperately praying for someone to save her. This was how her first encounter with him concluded. Haiwan was thrown into a pitch-black space. Panic immediately set in as she struggled to breathe, her mind desperately searching for a way to escape. But the overwhelming darkness paralyzed her, triggering a deep-seated fear she'd had since childhood. A painful memory surfaced. Whenever her mother was in a bad mood, she would lock young Haiwan in a narrow closet. The pleas of her younger self echoed in her mind, amplifying her current terror and leaving her helpless against the crushing darkness. Haiwan's terror was not just a simple fear, it was a deep-seated trauma from her past that still haunted her as an adult. Meanwhile, Jahyun's man, Hyungjin, carried her into a luxury apartment near Jamsil Station. Waiting inside was another associate, Seokjin, who looked up in surprise. He asked why Hyungjin would bring a woman there. Hyungjin explained she was a witness. Unimpressed, Seokjin bluntly questioned why she wasn't made to disappear along with the man from the alley. Hyungjin sternly reminded Seokjin that bringing the woman here was Juhyun's order. Unfazed, Seokjin made a disturbing suggestion about what they could do to entertain themselves with Haiwan while they waited for their boss. Haiwan overheard, realizing the man she saw in the alley wasn't here, and the one in charge was Juhyun. Suddenly, another man's sharp glance silenced Seokjin, who quickly claimed he was joking. He unlocked the door, and Hyungjin carried Haiwan into the luxurious apartment. She understood with dread that she was now in Juhyun's home. Inside the luxurious apartment, Haiwon's mind raced with panic. Bound and helpless in Hyungjin's arms, she desperately considered begging him for help before Jaehyun arrived. Suddenly, Hyungjin stopped and removed the tape from her mouth. He gave her a single piece of chilling advice. When his boss arrives, she must plead for her life, as it would be her only way to survive. He then left the room, the click of the lock sealing her in. Alone, Haiwon realized her phone was gone, shattered back in the alley, leaving her utterly trapped and hopeless. Alone and terrified, Haiwon cried until emotional exhaustion took over and she passed out. Her only crime, she thought, was trying to stand up for herself. Sometime later, a man's voice cut through the silence, questioning how she could be asleep. Haiwon's eyes shot open. Sitting before her was Jaehyun. He calmly remarked on her boldness for someone in her situation. Then she saw it, the dark stains on his shirt. She recognized him instantly from the alley, and a wave of pure terror left her completely frozen. Trembling, Haiwon desperately lied that she saw nothing, blaming her bad eyesight. Jaehyun was amused by her flimsy excuse. To test her, he held up 2 fingers, and she instinctively answered correctly. Realizing her mistake, she tried to backtrack, but it was too late. He struck her without warning, the sudden blow leaving her stunned and silent. As she reeled in shock, Jaehyun coldly asked if she preferred being tied up instead. He cruelly added that he would respect her wishes, making it clear just how trapped she really was. Jaehyun suddenly grabbed Haiwon's wrist and she flinched, confused by the unexpected action. She wondered if he was letting her go, but then he gently touched the sore mark on her cheek, commenting that it must hurt. He then handed her a business card, formally introducing himself as Kang Jaehyun, an executive director at Woojin Construction. The name of the major corporation stunned her into silence. She realized the legitimate company was just a front for his dangerous operations. Turning from the window, Jaehyun calmly stated that what she witnessed was a very real problem. Desperate to survive, Haiwon offered to sign a liability waiver, promising her silence. Her secret plan was to call the authorities the moment she was free, but Jaehyun saw right through her. He questioned why he should trust someone who might go to the police. Dropping to her knees, Haiwon begged him. He coldly stated that trust requires collateral and she had nothing to offer. He then concluded that the cleanest solution was to ensure she could never speak again. Realizing he was a man capable of anything, she tearfully asked what she should do. Terrified, Haiwon swore she would do anything he commanded, her will to live overpowering her fear. Jaehyun coolly considered the situation, deciding that dealing with her was a messy problem. He grabbed a lock of her hair and declared his solution. He would keep her by his side and watch her constantly. A wave of relief washed over Haiwon. At least she would live. Jaehyun told her to stop shaking, stating he did it for his own peace of mind and that she should start addressing him more comfortably. Jaehyun told Haiwon the floor was cold before pulling her to her feet. Startled by his sudden action, she nervously asked where he was taking her. His simple, one-word reply sent a chill down her spine. The bathroom. Stopping at the door, he instructed her to wash up quickly and come out. Panicked, Haiwon demanded to know what he meant. With a slight smirk, Jaehyun reminded her of her promise to obey any command. He was already testing her, making it clear that from now on, she had no choice but to follow. Jaehyun stood by the bathroom door with a smirk, telling Haiwon to wash up quickly because his patience was thin. Her mind raced with fear, questioning his sudden command. He reminded her that she had promised to do whatever he told her. Seeing the terror in her eyes, he leaned in close and taunted her, asking if she thought he was going to make an advance. He pointed out that she claimed she would do anything, yet she hesitated at his very first command, trapping her completely in her own words. Haiwon's mind raced as Jaehyun cornered her, convinced he was about to cross a line. She frantically tried to take back her words, pleading for anything but that. Seeing her tremble, he scoffed and pushed her toward the bathroom. He coldly informed her that he wasn't interested in someone so naive, telling her to just go wash. From outside the door, he ordered her to throw away her old clothes, stating he'd leave new ones. The lingering smell of her past was overwhelming. Haiwon shakily agreed, immensely relieved to have survived his test. Inside the bathroom, Haiwon felt the immense stress in her aching body. She decided to just wash up and get it over with. However, a glance at her reflection made her freeze in shock. Seeing her own disheveled state, she flushed with embarrassment. Realizing Jaehyun's cutting words were true, she was a mess. After quickly washing away the grime of her past under the shower, she cautiously approached the door. With no clothes to wear, she had no choice but to timidly call out to the man waiting on the other side. Haiwan nervously steps out of the bathroom in the fresh clothes Joo-hyun provided. His intense gaze immediately falls on her, making her skin crawl. She freezes as his eyes linger, wondering what he's noticed. In a panic, she remembers a private decision she made about her old undergarments, hoping it wasn't obvious. Just as she braces for the worst, Joo-hyun breaks the silence. He simply states that the clothes are too big and declares he'll have to buy her an entirely new wardrobe, asserting his control once again. Haiwan's relief was short-lived. Joo-hyun suddenly told her to forget the clothes and just sit down. When she hesitated, he ordered her to roll up her pants, revealing he had seen the scrape on her leg. He dismissed her protests, insisting he had to treat the wound because a girl shouldn't get scars. Completely thrown by this confusing act of care, Haiwan quietly complied. She watched in stunned silence as he knelt before her with a first aid kit, warning her that it would sting a little. As Joo-hyun finished carefully bandaging her leg, his gentle touch left Haiwan completely bewildered. He was such a strange man. Seeing a potential opening, she nervously asked if she could please go home. The atmosphere immediately changed. Joo-hyun flatly refused, stating that as a witness, she couldn't leave. He decided she would stay the night since it was already 4 in the morning. Visibly panicked, Haiwan quickly offered to sleep on the sofa or even the floor, desperate to maintain some distance between them. Joo-hyun dismissed her offer to sleep on the floor, asking what she took him for. He then commanded her to sleep with him in his room, revealing there was only one bed in the house. Haiwan was completely stunned by his audacity. The next day, a man named Seokjin returned her phone with the screen fixed. But this was no kindness. He coldly informed her that a tracker and wiretap had been installed. He warned her not to call the police or run away. Trapped and now monitored, Haiwan could only agree. Despite her overwhelming exhaustion, Haiwan slept soundly through the night. To her immense relief, nothing happened. The next morning, a sharply dressed Joo-hyun found her spacing out and teased her about how well she slept. He reminded her she had a part-time shift and told her to get going. As she left, Haiwan hesitantly thanked him. He simply said it was nothing, a slight smile on his face. His confusing behavior made her wonder if, maybe, he wasn't so bad after all. However, once Joo-hyun was in his car, his friendly demeanor vanished. He coldly ordered Seokjin to report what he had found. Seokjin began his report, revealing Haiwan had a staggering 200 million won debt. Joo-hyun was shocked to hear she was only 25. Seokjin explained the debt belonged to her missing mother, but Haiwan was the guarantor, leaving her fully responsible. The real problem, however, was the lender, Company L, a group notorious for their ruthless tactics. They knew she couldn't pay, and if she missed a single payment, they would force her into a terrible life to settle the account. Joo-hyun cursed, furious that she was involved with such dangerous people. Joo-hyun's mind drifted to the past, recalling a much younger Haiwan. He once believed she would manage on her own, but in just a few years, her life had become a complete wreck. He had only wished for her to live a simple, happy life, smiling like anyone else. Snapping back to the present, he gave Seokjin 2 orders: arrange a meeting with Director Park from Company L and locate Haiwan's mother. With his decision made, Joo-hyun leaned back, concluding that he had no choice but to step in and handle this himself. Once the car drove away, Haiwan finally felt a moment of peace. Safely inside her own apartment, she sagged against the wall, just grateful to be home in one piece. But the relief was short-lived as the last 24 hours came rushing back. The horrifying image of a man being brutally handled by gangsters flashed in her mind, followed by the terrifying memory of her own abduction. She had witnessed something terrible, been kidnapped, and ended up in the house of the man behind it all. The full weight of her ordeal crashed down, leaving her trembling with fear. Haiwan tries to resume her normal life, heading to her job at a barbecue restaurant. But her boss makes an uncomfortable advance, inviting her for a drink. She politely refuses and turns to leave, but he grabs her arm, stopping her cold. He claims they need to have a deeper talk, revealing he purposely withheld her paycheck, offering it now in cash. Haiwan instantly sees through his scheme. He's using her wages to pressure and control her. Joo-hyun presented Haiwan with a chilling ultimatum. He declared that if he loved her, she was required to love him back. But if he didn't, her fate was much worse. She would become his prisoner forever, trapped in his house and completely at his mercy. In a twisted attempt at comfort, he promised to do whatever made her feel at ease, while making it clear she could never leave. Haiwan was stunned into silence, disgusted by his perverse definition of love. She finally understood she had no real choice at all. Haiwan's mind flooded with terrifying memories, an angry voice yelling that she couldn't escape, the feeling of being chased. Her panic mounted as she worried about finding a new job with no money to spare. Suddenly, a man's voice interrupted her thoughts. He stood in her doorway, holding a phone, and confirmed her name. He wasn't here for a friendly visit. He was collecting on a debt she had guaranteed for someone else. With a cold smirk, he noted she'd been ignoring their calls. Haiwan's heart sank as she realized loan sharks had found her. The loan shark dismissed Haiwan's explanation about her delayed wages. He sneered, stating they couldn't trust someone who ignored their calls. His tone then turned predatory as he looked her over, commenting on her looks before touching her chin. He suggested that with her appearance, it would be difficult to pay off the massive interest. He then offered to introduce her to a good job. Haiwan understood his disgusting offer immediately. It was the one fate she had worked tirelessly to avoid, determined not to end up like her mother. The loan shark's hand moved as he made a sickening proposal, suggesting an indecent way for her to handle the interest. Haiwan froze in terror, her mind spiraling into despair over a life of constant struggle and loneliness. She felt completely trapped. Just as hopelessness set in, a fist suddenly flew through the air, knocking the loan shark aside. Haiwan looked up to see Ju-hyun standing there. He dryly remarked how they were only apart for half a day, yet so much had happened, before turning to ask if she was all right. Overwhelmed, Haiwan could only stammer his name before Ju-hyun pulled her into a firm embrace. Her mind raced. She knew this man was dangerous, and his help wasn't free. Ju-hyun warned she might regret this later, but for the first time in her life, someone had actually come to save her, and she clung to that feeling. Later in his car, she couldn't stop crying. He told her she was tired and should sleep, but she insisted the tears just wouldn't stop. Ju-hyun looked down, his expression unreadable as he coolly questioned her. Ju-hyun coolly declared that it couldn't be helped. He said he was worried her pretty eyes would swell up from crying and leaned in to silence her with a kiss. Haiwan was stunned, but instead of resisting, she acted on impulse. For the first time in her life, she decided to follow her heart, wrapping her arms around him. He then guided her into a room, their embrace never breaking. The kiss deepened, becoming more intense as he clearly took control, marking a dramatic shift in their already complicated dynamic. The intense moment that began in the car carried over into the room. As their embrace deepened, Haiwan felt her mind drifting, completely lost in the connection. Ju-hyun took full control of the situation, and she soon found herself feeling exposed and vulnerable. Haiwan stirs from a strange dream, a memory of finding an injured man in the rain. Waking up groggy, she dismisses it, thinking her head hurts from crying so much. But as she sits up, a shocking realization hits her. She quickly covers herself, face burning with confusion as she questions her undressed state. The memories of the previous night come rushing back to her. Turning her head, she sees Ju-hyun sleeping peacefully beside her, confirming that her ordeal was far from over and everything that happened was real. Haiwan freezes as Ju-hyun stirs beside her. She quietly asks if he slept well, but he replies that he didn't. He stretches, casually remarking that her fainting the previous night had left him with unfinished business. Mortified, she tries to explain that it was her first time and she was overwhelmed, but he simply laughs at her panic. The reality of their intimate encounter hits her like a tidal wave. She had only known this man for a day. Horrified by her own actions, she realizes she must get dressed and escape immediately. As Haiwan scrambles to escape, Ju-hyun pulls her back into his arms. He asks if she's finished with her regrets, claiming he knows she's planning to run. Before she can answer, he leans in close, reminding her that what happened can't be taken back and twisting the situation to blame her for starting it. He casually tells her to go wash up in the bathroom. As he turns to leave, giving her a clear view of his physique, a mortified Haiwan covers her eyes, not knowing where to look. Clutching the sheet, Haiwan asks where her clothes are. Instead of answering, Ju-hyun turns and demands she use his first name, stating they are much closer now. He playfully withholds her clothes until she complies, leaving her no choice but to whisper Ju-hyun. Satisfied, he smirks before dropping a bombshell. He threw her old clothes away. As she panics about getting home, He coldly informs her she isn't leaving, reminding her that the lone shark broke her door lock. Her desperate suggestion of a padlock is cruelly dismissed, sealing her entrapment. Desperate, Haiwan pleads to go home, explaining that if she misses work, she'll be fired. Joo-hyun casually dismisses her panic and points to a suitcase. Inside are all her important belongings from her apartment, except for her clothes. He coolly informs her that he had his men collect her things, but threw her clothes away. As a solution, he declares she will live with him, rent-free. He offers to buy her new clothes as compensation and tells her to get dressed, leaving her with absolutely no way out of his grasp. After getting dressed, Haiwan finds Joo-hyun and tells him the clothes he provided fit perfectly. He coolly states he guessed her size, then shamelessly asks if she remembered her undergarments this time. A mortified Haiwan realizes he knew about her previous state. Annoyed, she calls his teasing style old-fashioned. He uses the opportunity to reveal their 9-year age difference. Stunned, Haiwan asks if he's 34. He asks if he looks older but quickly tells her not to answer, claiming it might hurt his pride, leaving her to process his real age. Haiwan thinks about her cringy boss, section manager Kim. He tries too hard to act young, but it doesn't work. Her mind then drifts to Joo-hyun, a man whose every small action feels captivating. Suddenly, he appears shirtless behind her, calling her name. He gently turns her face toward him, startling her. After a quick look, he cryptically remarks that they won't need a trip to the pharmacy after all. He then suggests they eat, noting she hasn't had a meal since last night, showing an unexpected kindness that contradicts his dangerous reputation. As they drive, Haiwan briefly wonders if their intimate night together made Joo-hyun feel a sense of responsibility. Her thought is cut short by a hostile stare from his subordinate in the mirror. She knows that look of contempt. It's the same judgment she's faced her entire life because of cruel rumors about her mother. Reminding herself not to be foolish, she recalls that Joo-hyun is a dangerous man who took a life just yesterday. A man like that wouldn't develop feelings over one night. She decides to end any hope before it starts. Less than an hour after deciding to keep her distance, Haiwan's resolution is immediately shattered. Joo-hyun suddenly pulls her close, right in the middle of the store. Completely flustered, she begs him to wait, reminding him that there are people around. He ignores her pleas entirely, leaning in for a demanding kiss that catches her off guard. In that single, overwhelming moment, her firm decision to stay away from the dangerous man crumbles into nothing, proving she has little control when he is near. The shopping trip is completely derailed. Joo-hyun ignores Haiwan's pleas, holding her firmly as he continues his advances. Her mind races, confused by the sudden turn of events. They were only there to look at clothes, but the situation has escalated far beyond that. Overwhelmed by his forceful actions in the middle of the boutique, she tries again to get him to stop, telling him to hold on. But her words are lost as he makes it clear who is in control, leaving her powerless to do anything but endure his display of dominance. Haiwan finds herself in an overwhelmingly intimate moment, completely flustered by Joo-hyun's advances. He questions her hesitation, reminding her they were just as close the night before. Her mind reels, unable to process how the situation escalated so quickly. Just minutes earlier, they were at the boutique where the staff showered her with compliments on different outfits. When Joo-hyun asked about her personal style, she could only stammer that she wears anything. Taking control immediately, he told the manager to just bring whatever they thought would suit her, leaving Haiwan with no say. Joo-hyun tells the staff to go easy on Haiwan, casually calling her his younger sibling. A shop assistant immediately teases that this could make Haiwan their future sister-in-law. The comment leaves Haiwan speechless, and she privately scoffs at the absurd suggestion. Before she can fully process it, Joo-hyun suddenly grabs her wrist. Without a word, he pulls her away from the boutique, a look of quiet satisfaction on his face as he leaves her completely bewildered and powerless to object. Joo-hyun's friendly demeanor vanishes. With a chilling tone, he corrects the staff, stating Haiwan is not his sibling and warning the manager to mind her words. The manager immediately apologizes, her face pale with fear as the other employees look on, confused. Taking complete control, Joo-hyun dismisses the entire staff, telling them to send every outfit to Haiwan's house. Alone now, she cautiously asks why he made them leave. He flashes a disarming smile, claiming he simply thought she was tired, but the sudden shift in atmosphere leaves her completely unsettled. Trying to create some space, Haiwan suggests they should just go home, mentioning Manager Yoon to create an excuse. Joo-hyun simply stares at her, his expression unreadable, and she internally panics, thinking she angered him. Suddenly, he pulls her back against him, his arms wrapping around her waist. He leans in close to her ear, telling her she's being incredibly cute. Before Haiwan can react to the overwhelming closeness, he moves in, leaving her utterly bewildered. She has no idea why he mistakenly believes she was feeling jealous. Haiwan felt a familiar sense of dread. It was all happening again. She tried to stop him, her voice trembling as she protested that they were still in the boutique. Joo-hyun simply brushed off her fears, calmly stating that he had already made sure no one could come in and even had the cameras turned off. Her pleas were useless. He completely ignored her, moving closer and silencing her protests entirely. Effortlessly lifting her against the wall, he left her with no room to escape, asserting his complete control over the situation. Joo-hyun whispered for Haiwan to focus only on him. Flustered and trapped, she questioned how she could possibly do that. He simply smirked, enjoying her distress as he pressed her more firmly against the wall. With a chilling confidence, he asked if she liked it, savoring her mortified reaction. Before she could even process his question, his hand advanced with clear intent. A sharp gasp escaped her as his invasive touch made her freeze completely. In that moment, he asserted his dominance, leaving her utterly powerless against his advances. Joo-hyun cruelly mocked Haiwan, asking why she was reacting so strongly if she truly didn't want this. As his advances grew bolder, she pleaded with him to stop, reminding him they were still outside. He completely dismissed her panic, reminding her that he'd already taken care of everything and that the room was soundproof. Trapped and terrified, Haiwan could only cry, insisting that this wasn't what she wanted. Her desperate words meant nothing to him as he asserted his complete control over her, leaving her utterly helpless. As Haiwan silently called him a pervert, Joo-hyun suddenly pulled back. He feigned innocence, asking if he had somehow made a mistake. The brief pause was a stark reminder of her grim reality. She recalled that survival meant going along with his twisted demands. Trembling, Haiwan steeled her resolve, telling herself she could endure it. Seeing her sudden submission, Joo-hyun seemed pleased. He reached out and gently tilted her chin up, his intentions now clearer than ever as he closed the distance between them once more. Joo-hyun gently wiped away a tear, apologizing for his actions. He questioned why she was trying to endure something she didn't want, promising they would stop if she truly disliked it. His sudden gentleness left Haiwan completely baffled. He then told her to wait, turning away from her. To add to her confusion, he made a strange clarification. He admitted to having his own particular tastes, but insisted he wasn't the type to be unfaithful. Haiwan was left speechless, unable to comprehend his bizarre and contradictory behavior. Haiwan panics, telling Joo-hyun to wait and insisting she can wipe the mess herself. He ignores her, ordering her to stay still. Kneeling down, he begins cleaning her skirt, reasoning that the one who made the mess should be the one to clean it. Haiwan flinches, overwhelmed with embarrassment by his actions. Her discomfort turns to utter shock when she notices an undeniable physical reaction from him. Just as she freezes, he looks up innocently, announcing that he's all done, leaving her stunned and mortified. Catching her gaze, Joo-hyun cheekily asked if she was staring. Flustered, Haiwan stammered an apology, claiming his situation just looked uncomfortable. Seizing the opportunity, he leaned in and asked if she could help relieve his discomfort. He then made a very specific and intimate request, assuring her that was all he wanted. Baffled by his words, Haiwan asked what he meant. Joo-hyun was relieved by her innocence, darkly remarking that he would have dealt with any man who might have taught her such things before him. Riding in the car later, Haiwan replayed the shocking moment in her mind. Although nothing ended up happening back at the shop, she was still far too embarrassed to look Joo-hyun in the eye. He suddenly broke the silence, calling her name. Noticing her flushed cheeks, he asked what she was thinking about that was making her face so red. Feigning concern, he wondered if she had a fever, reaching over to touch her forehead. His casual demeanor only made Haiwan feel more flustered and trapped. Joo-hyun told the driver to take her home quickly. Suddenly, the meaning of his earlier request finally clicked for Haiwan. She asked him if he was talking about that, stunning him for a moment before he burst into laughter. He found her delayed realization absolutely hilarious. Mortified, Haiwan demanded he stop. To change the subject, she complained that her new outfit was too expensive. Joo-hyun suggested they go somewhere nice to match, but then claimed he had other plans. He told her a feast was waiting at home and warned he'd be checking later to see if she ate. Trying to be polite, Haiwan told Jaehyun he didn't have to go to such trouble for her meal. But her attempt to refuse him made his friendly demeanor vanish instantly. His tone turned cold as he asked if refusing him was a habit. He warned that her rejection of his gifts, from the clothes to the food, was starting to make him angry. His menacing words snapped Haiwan back to reality. She had foolishly forgotten her situation. She never had the right to say no to him. As this grim realization set in, the car arrived. Jaehyun gripped Haiwan's arm, telling her to eat while he was gone before placing a soft kiss on her head. He then exited the vehicle, leaving her alone with the driver. As the car pulled away, the driver unexpectedly offered some advice. He urged Haiwan to hold on to Jaehyun, claiming her life would completely turn around if she did. He confessed he normally wouldn't interfere, but felt compelled to speak because her situation looked so pitiful. Haiwan was left speechless, mortified that even a stranger recognized and pitied her circumstances. Elsewhere, a woman fumed, unable to understand Jaehyun's actions. He had turned down the daughters of corporate heads and beautiful celebrities without a second thought. Yet, he suddenly paid off the massive debt of a woman he barely knew. Back in her luxurious prison, a servant set out the meal Jaehyun had ordered, urging Haiwan to eat. She quietly agreed. Left alone, her mind raced. If he truly paid her debt, she should be grateful. Instead, a heavy feeling settled in her heart. The horrifying realization hit her. It felt as if she had sold herself. Tears streamed down Haiwan's face as she finally broke down. She had fought her whole life to avoid becoming her mother, a woman who couldn't live without a man. Her mother believed it was natural to rely on men for survival, using her charms to get whatever she wanted. Haiwan had always been disgusted by this and swore she'd be different. Suddenly, a cruel voice in her head asked why she was crying. After all, she'd met a good man and changed her fate. Haiwan looked up, horrified by the realization. She was becoming just like her. The taunting voice in her head took the form of her mother, who smugly claimed Haiwan was her daughter through and through. The vision asked how she was any different, pointing out that a man had paid her debt in the end. It urged her to simply accept her situation and live comfortably. Haiwan desperately denied it, but the words were too much. In a fit of rage, she grabbed a magazine and hurled it across the room with a shout. The loud crash broke the spell, leaving her panting on the floor as her gaze landed on the discarded book. The front door beeped and clicked open as Jaehyun let himself in, announcing his return. He stepped into the dark apartment, wondering why the lights were off and hoping she hadn't gone to sleep without eating. He casually mentioned that he'd have to scold her if she skipped her meal, but he stopped dead in his tracks when he saw her. Haiwan was sitting on the floor, looking completely broken. Her face was stained with tears, and her eyes were empty. Stunned, Jaehyun could only say her name, baffled by her desolate state. Alarmed by her broken state, Jaehyun rushed to Haiwan's side. He gripped her shoulder firmly, demanding to know what was wrong and if she was hurt. Haiwan slowly looked up at him, her eyes completely empty. In a hollow voice, she began to ask a chilling question. Would he take care of all her unhappiness? The question hung in the air, a desperate plea that gave him the perfect opening for his twisted ultimatum. This was the moment her fate was sealed. Jaehyun coldly tells her to go to the hospital if she's sick, grabbing her arm. Haiwan ignores this and asks the one question haunting her. Did he really pay off her debt and why? Jaehyun is completely unimpressed. He scoffs, asking if her breakdown was just because of that, admitting he thought something serious had happened. The word just snaps Haiwan out of her despair. Furious, she clenches her fists and tells him that his casual action is the very reason her entire world has just collapsed. Haiwan finally explodes, screaming at Jaehyun about how miserable she is. But he is completely unmoved, stating that she shouldn't feel that way. He coldly explains that he was saving her from loan sharks, reminding her that they would have sold her off to collect the debt. Haiwan sees no difference. She accuses him of paying her debt just because they've been intimate, asking how this is any better. Jaehyun warns her to stop her nonsense, but she breaks down, confessing that she tried desperately not to end up like her mother. As Haiwan confesses her deepest fear, she trembles, believing she has become just like her mother. Jaehyun, however, is completely out of patience. Exhausted from his own day, he sees her breakdown as nothing more than an annoyance. He gently lifts her chin, telling her that he understands what she is saying. But as he holds her tear-stained face, his thoughts are cold and dismissive. Cursing internally, he looks at her and thinks she is nothing but a simple crybaby, completely invalidating her pain. Joo-hyun gently wipes away Haiwon's tears, telling her to calm down and listen. He reminds her of his dangerous background, stating that he didn't just pay off the debt. Confused, Haiwon asks what he means. He twists her own words against her, recalling how she compared her situation to being sold to him. Leaning in close, he coldly declares that she should repay him with her body, just as she implied. Haiwon squeezes her eyes shut, bracing for the worst. But then he stops, calling her a fool and ordering her to open her eyes. Joo-hyun pinches Haiwon's cheek, asking what she was thinking. He clarifies she's meant to repay her debt with household work. Haiwon is stunned into silence. With a slight smirk, he explains that he'll waive the interest if she takes care of the housework while living there. She only has to pay back the principal amount monthly. She protests, saying that would be a huge loss for him. Still, the unexpected kindness fills her with relief. She accepts his offer, promising to work diligently and repay him quickly before shyly thanking him for his help. With her heart racing, Haiwon watches as Joo-hyun leans closer. He tells her there's something more important than the debt right now, the fact she hasn't eaten. She shyly confesses that she was waiting to eat with him. Amused, Joo-hyun thinks she's cute and decides to let it go. Haiwon blushes at his cheesy compliment, a happy sigh escaping her lips. As he smirks, his mind drifts back 10 years to a rainy night. A memory shows a younger Haiwon saving him, revealing his initial motive was simply to repay that favor. As Joo-hyun watches her, he can't figure out his own feelings. Is it a desire to protect her, a physical attraction, or actual love? He realizes it has become hard to tell the difference. The next morning, Haiwon arrives at work, thinking it feels like it's been ages. Her mind reels from the chaotic weekend. After meeting Joo-hyun, she'd witnessed a crime, confronted her boss, and had her debt cleared. On top of everything, their relationship had taken a surprising turn. She blushes intensely, recalling the new intimacy between them, completely flustered by the sudden closeness. As Haiwon tries to start her day, a hand lands on her shoulder, startling her. It's her colleague, So-young, who cheerfully notes how much happier she looks. Haiwon claims she just rested well, but So-young admits she'd been worried for months. She mentions how Haiwon always left work early and had terrible dark circles, fearing she might quit. The innocent concern makes Haiwon realize the truth. She had been so focused on her debt and secret night job that she never saw how much the exhaustion was showing. Guilt washes over Haiwon as she realizes So-young likely handled her workload. She turns to her colleague and apologizes, explaining that personal issues had left her unfocused. So-young's concern melts into a bright smile when Haiwon confirms everything is sorted out. To make it up to her, So-young playfully demands a coffee. Haiwon gratefully accepts, and the two head out. So-young excitedly mentions the company dinner at a beef restaurant, putting a friendly arm around Haiwon. As they leave, a shadowy figure watches them from a distance. The team dinner kicks off at a bustling beef restaurant as their manager, Seokjin, calls for a toast. So-young happily tells Haiwon she's glad they finally get to have a drink together. The manager agrees, adding that it's been too long since the team gathered like this. Everyone seems to be in high spirits, enjoying the food and company. Haiwon takes a sip from her glass, trying to join in. She had genuinely been looking forward to a normal night out, but as she sits there, she realizes she can't concentrate. Her mind drifts back to an earlier conversation with Joo-hyun. He had given her a simple order: call him the moment she finished work. When she questioned him, he turned it back on her, asking if she could even find her way home alone. The cold reality sank in. She had always been driven in his car. She didn't even know the address of the house where she was staying. His instruction to call wasn't a kind offer, it was a command, reinforcing his complete control over her every move. Haiwon debates calling Joo-hyun, feeling it's odd to treat him like a personal driver. She decides against it, planning to get the address from her manager and catch a taxi instead. So-young notices her glancing at her phone and playfully urges her to eat more. She explains that people were concerned about her recent behavior, especially their classmate Hyungjin. So-young then puts him on the spot, teasingly asking if he likes Haiwon. A flustered Hyungjin chokes on his drink, then breaks into a shy, happy smile. So-young teases Hyungjin for blushing but reassures Haiwon that she likes her the most. After a moment of friendly banter, she asks a direct question: does Haiwon have a boyfriend? The word triggers an intrusive thought, and an image of Joo-hyun's intense gaze flashes in Haiwon's mind. Startled, she quickly denies having one. So-young presses on, asking about her ideal type. Haiwon claims she's never thought about it, but her mind immediately pictures a man with strong features and broad shoulders, a description that perfectly matches Jaehyun. Haiwon muses that her ideal type might be a kind guy with a fit body, but a vivid image of Jaehyun's physique flashes in her mind. Mortified by her own intrusive thought, she tells herself to snap out of it. Just then, her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. She knows instantly it's from him. The message is a blunt, two-word command: call me. When she dials the number, she looks up to see Jaehyun standing right in front of her, leaving her to stammer an excuse. Jaehyun immediately cuts her off, coldly stating that she knew about the company dinner. A chill runs down Haiwon's spine as she asks how he could possibly know that. He reminds her of the tracking and wiretapping systems he installed, a stark warning not to even think about running away or calling the police. He then orders her to come home, but she refuses, insisting she'll stay until the end. Changing his approach, Jaehyun tells her to call him when she's done, and he will pick her up. Haiwon sarcastically wonders if Jaehyun has been waiting for her call this whole time. As she types a reply, a voice calls her name. She turns to see Hyunjin, who asks why she's standing out in the cold. With a kind smile, he invites her to their next classmate reunion. He explains that a lot of people want to get to know her better, admitting with a laugh that he is one of them. Genuinely surprised by his forwardness, Haiwon thanks him for the concern and promises that she will go. In his dark office, Jaehyun listens intently through a hidden device as Hyunjin invites Haiwon to their next reunion. Hearing her agree to go, his mood instantly sours. He yanks the earpiece from his ear, leaning back in frustration. Jaehyun believes that if he leaves her unattended, other men will inevitably swarm around her like pests. Deciding he must handle the situation himself, he grabs his jacket with grim determination. He resolves to go and get rid of these damn flies personally. The company dinner finally wraps up, and after helping their boss into a cab, a colleague asks Haiwon how she's getting home. Just as she's about to answer, Hyunjin steps in and kindly offers her a ride. Haiwon panics internally, knowing she still hasn't called Jaehyun. Suddenly, a cold, familiar voice calls her name. She looks up in shock to see Jaehyun standing before her. The people nearby begin to whisper, commenting on how handsome but intimidating the newcomer looks. Haiwon stares in shock, barely managing to think Jaehyun's name. With a confident smile, he announces that he came to pick her up because it's late. Before she can process his words, he swiftly grabs her wrist and pulls her into a firm embrace. Ignoring everyone else, he leans in close, his voice low and possessive. He tells her it's time for them to go home, putting a chilling emphasis on the word "are." His hold makes it clear that she has no choice in the matter. As Jaehyun holds Haiwon, her colleagues whisper, sensing the unsettling atmosphere. Flustered, she begs him to wait, reminding him that everyone is watching. Jaehyun coldly replies that he's making them watch on purpose. He mentions the fly, Hyunjin, and Haiwon realizes with dread that he was eavesdropping on her earlier. Feeling the heavy tension, her co-workers make awkward excuses and leave in a hurry. Now completely isolated from her friends, Haiwon is left alone to face Jaehyun as he leads her away. In the car, Jaehyun continues his display of control by making Haiwon sit on his lap. With a smug grin, he asks if she's uncomfortable. Internally, she's screaming that she is, but he dismisses her, twisting the situation by claiming she sat there on her own. As she silently protests that she only tripped, a subtle movement from him makes her freeze. Haiwon stifles a gasp, face burning with shame. She realizes his driver, Seokjin, is right there, forced to witness her utter humiliation. With a smirk, Jaehyun asks Haiwon why she is looking at other men, claiming it makes him jealous. He then warns his driver, Seokjin, who nervously promises to look ahead. Haiwon begs Jaehyun to stop, worried her colleagues will get the wrong idea and think he's her boyfriend. He coldly asks what there is to misunderstand. Leaning in close, he whispers that they live together and share a bed. His grip on her tightens, and he confirms their complete intimacy, leaving her trapped in humiliation as he asserts his total ownership over her. Jaehyun tells a shocked Haiwon he's thought of them this way ever since she hugged him first. Her mind races, trying to recall such a moment, thinking of the time the loan shark attacked. But Jaehyun's memory is of a far more intimate encounter. Seeing her confusion, he whispers a cutting question. Does she normally live with men who aren't her boyfriend? His hand moves pointedly on her leg as he asks if she does things like this with them too. He twists the knife, reminding her that this was her decision. Jaehyun continues his psychological game, asking Haiwan for her definition of a boyfriend. She quietly answers that it's a relationship where two people like each other, secretly thinking he probably only wants a physical connection. His next words shock her to her core. He leans in close and calmly confesses that he likes her. Completely stunned, Haiwan asks if she heard him correctly. With a chilling smirk, Joo-hyun confirms it, delivering his twisted ultimatum. Since he likes her, all she has to do is like him back. Her protests die on her lips. Joo-hyun leans in, his hand resting on her neck as he tells her to just admit that she likes him too. Haiwan freezes, completely stunned by his confession. Her mind races, reminding herself their entire connection is built on debt, not feelings. She doesn't know if he's serious or just playing another cruel game. Sensing her hesitation, he pulls her into an embrace, softly telling her to take her time. Trapped by his false kindness, she can't answer. And so, their new, unsettling routine of traveling to work together began. As their new routine settled in, Haiwan reflected on their strange arrangement. They ate meals together and shared the same space at night, but she knew they weren't a real couple. Trapped in his arms, her mind spiraled. Did Joo-hyun actually like her? The question was a dangerous one, because it led to an even more confusing thought. Was she starting to like him? 2 weeks passed, and spring melted into summer. As Haiwan brushed her hair one morning, she realized a whole season had changed since she first arrived at his house. Haiwan expected him to throw her out for her silence, but Joo-hyun was surprisingly patient. He never brought up his confession again, allowing a strange sense of normalcy to settle between them. One morning, he calls out with a bold threat. If she doesn't hurry up, he'll come in and dress her himself. He enters anyway, teasing her for being no fun. Ignoring her flustered protest, he simply points out her damp hair. Warning that she'll get sick, he grabs the hairdryer, intending to dry it for her. As Joo-hyun dries her hair, he asks when her shift ends, casually saying he'll pick her up later. Haiwan is a blushing mess, completely flustered by the unexpected kindness. This simple act of care makes her nervous, and she can't understand why he's so natural about it. Once he's finished, he tells her to meet him in the parking lot when she's ready. Left alone, Haiwan fights her confusing feelings. She forces herself to remember the 100 million won debt, reminding herself to stay focused and not forget her place. Later, Joo-hyun stood alone on a balcony, smoking as he looked out over the city. His subordinate, Seokjin, approached with an update, confirming their target had taken the bait. However, Seokjin was worried, pointing out that Haiwan might be in danger because of their plan. Unconcerned, Joo-hyun pinched the bridge of his nose and told him to leave it. A dark, confident smile crept across his face as he declared that everything was about to start soon anyway, hinting at a much larger game at play. As Joo-hyun dropped her off, he told Haiwan to clear her schedule for dinner so they could eat together. Beaming, she quickly agreed and waved him off as he drove away. From the passenger seat, another man pointed out how smitten the boss seemed with Haiwan. Joo-hyun simply glanced at her retreating figure in the rearview mirror, his face a cold, unreadable mask. His companion's observation went unanswered, leaving his true intentions shrouded in mystery as they pulled away from the curb. In the car, Seokjin praised his boss, saying anyone would fall for someone so handsome and rich. Joo-hyun brushed off the flattery, but his mind was on Haiwan. He thought her feelings were obvious and grew impatient waiting for her to confess. Later at the office, a manager asked Haiwan to fix a report before addressing his own superior. However, the man in the executive chair was not Joo-hyun. A new face, Executive Director Kong, curtly announced he was busy and asked what the manager needed from him. In his office, Joo-hyun impatiently listened to a report from his subordinate. The man delivered bad news. One of their undercover agents had seemingly defected to their rival, Lee Byung-hun. However, he suspected it was a ruse. A troubling incident involving Byung-hun had just surfaced, so their agent might be getting closer to investigate. He confirmed that he had already increased Haiwan's security as a precaution. Joo-hyun approved, ordering him to keep it quiet. As rumors called for Byung-hun's resignation, it became clear this was a desperate power play. Joo-hyun's subordinate advised him to be extra cautious, noting that this situation felt different. He asked if it reminded Joo-hyun of the past, when their rival tried to cover up his mistakes by threatening him 10 years ago. The memory was sharp, a dark, rainy night where Joo-hyun was left gravely injured on the street. His subordinate reminded him that he had nearly lost his life back then. Joo-hyun confirmed he remembered, acknowledging the lingering pain from that attack. Back in the present, he let out a cold smirk, tapping his fingers in anticipation. Jaehyun told his subordinate not to worry, recalling that Byung-han had tried everything to get rid of him in the past, yet he was still alive. His memory flashed back to when he was 18, the start of their bitter rivalry. As a parentless teen wandering the streets, he was ambushed by a group of men. He tells his subordinate to have Seokjin bring the car around, explaining it's time to pick Haiwon up for an important day. Meanwhile, Haiwon heads to the elevator with her new guard. He makes small talk, noting that she's leaving early. She confirms that she has a dinner appointment, completely unaware that Jaehyun is listening to their conversation through a hidden earpiece. As Jaehyun waited with Haiwon, he confirmed her dinner plans. Nearby, her new guard made conversation, asking if Jaehyun was her boyfriend. Unsure how to answer, Haiwon hesitated. Taking this as an opening, the guard suggested they exchange numbers for an upcoming work event. She agreed, but just as they were swapping contact information, a car screeched to a halt beside them. Having overheard every word through his earpiece, Jaehyun had arrived, and his timing made it clear he was not pleased with the situation. Haiwon slid into the car, apologizing for the wait and claiming she came as soon as work was over. Jaehyun immediately called her a liar, his tone leaving no room for argument. When she insisted she had rushed, he confronted her with what he knew. He pointed out that if she had come straight down, she wouldn't have had time to exchange phone numbers with her new guard. Realizing he had overheard everything, she asked if he was upset. He took her phone, asking quietly if it was pathetic for him to be bothered by it. Haiwon internally questioned why Jaehyun was sulking, thinking he was being petty over a simple phone number exchange. To her own surprise, she found his jealousy a little cute, blushing before she could stop herself. She quickly snapped out of it, remembering the massive debt that defined her situation. Taking matters into his own hands, Jaehyun declared he was deleting the guard's number. He promptly blocked the contact and warned her to stay away from the man. Eager to move on, Haiwon simply agreed and suggested they eat, earning a satisfied smirk. With the matter settled, Haiwon agreed to go, and they set off for dinner. Soon, Jaehyun pulled the car to a stop, announcing their arrival. As she stepped out, however, her jaw dropped. This was no restaurant. They were standing in front of a grand, luxurious hotel. Flustered, she told him he should have warned her, so she could have dressed up. She complained that it was unfair for him to look so handsome while she was still in her casual work clothes. Instead of answering, he simply pulled her into a gentle embrace, telling her not to worry. Jaehyun dismissed her worries, telling her that even in a rag, she would still be the most lovely person in his eyes. Flustered by his smooth words, Haiwon thought he had gotten much slicker lately, and she urged him inside. Once seated in the luxurious restaurant, Jaehyun ordered for them with practiced ease. Watching him navigate the high-end world so effortlessly, Haiwon nervously fidgeted. It was a stark reminder of how different their lives were, making her feel completely out of her element in his world. Jaehyun snapped Haiwon out of her daze. He raised his glass for a toast, smoothly telling her that when he was last here for work, he couldn't stop thinking about bringing her with him. His charming words made Haiwon blush deeply, and she accused him of teasing her again. Jaehyun simply laughed, admitting he loved her timid reactions and found her cute when she was flustered. As she tried to explain her discomfort, the sound of footsteps interrupted them. A new voice called out to Jaehyun, addressing him as Director Kong. Jaehyun's face hardened as he recognized the voice. A woman in a bold red dress, Young Hyun of the Musung Group, approached their table. She called their meeting a coincidence, casually mentioning she was about to call him anyway. Jaehyun curtly told her he was in the middle of a meal, but she dismissed their dinner as unimportant. Glancing at a startled Haiwon, she made herself comfortable. Internally, Jaehyun seethed. He had planned to confess to Haiwon again that night, and this unwelcome interruption had just ruined everything. Jaehyun instantly recognized Young Hyun of the rival Musung Group. He knew the rumors well. She posed as Byung-hun's girlfriend but was secretly placed by her father to keep watch. When Byung-hun faltered, she had turned her attention to Jaehyun. Annoyed by the interruption, he told her their dinner was important and that she should leave. Offended, Hyun leaned in, asking if he even knew what she was about to propose. Jaehyun just smirked. He told her it was obvious. She was suggesting a much more personal kind of business relationship. Hyun's patience wore thin, asking if he ever got tired of her proposition to spend the night together. Jaehyun called her delusional, mocking her for thinking he was like Byung-hun, willing to give up everything for a single evening. He then declared that only one woman could ever sway him. Realizing he meant Haiwan, Yehyun angrily brought up the rumors about him keeping a young girl. She couldn't believe he would reject her for someone like Haiwan. Juhyun warned her to watch her mouth, but she just smirked, pointing out Haiwan wasn't his girlfriend. Yehyun continued her taunts, asking if Haiwan was just some passing amusement he was putting effort into. As Juhyun's anger flared, Haiwan suddenly pulled her hand away from his grasp. Facing a shocked Yehyun, Haiwan calmly but firmly declared that she was, in fact, his girlfriend. Taking control of the situation, she placed a hand on a surprised Juhyun's shoulder and told him it was time for them to leave. She then warned Yehyun to stop throwing herself at someone who was already taken. With a final, cutting remark about how pathetic Yehyun's behavior was, Haiwan coolly dismissed her and walked away. Juhyun, looking quite pleased with this turn of events, followed her into the grand lobby. There, he suddenly pulled her close for an unexpected kiss. A flustered Haiwan reminded him they were in public, but he was completely unfazed. He simply told her to let everyone watch, asking who would possibly care about him kissing his girlfriend. Internally, Haiwan admitted to herself that she had snapped earlier without thinking, spurred on by pure jealousy. As the kiss ended, a flustered Haiwan tried to create some distance, pleading for them to just go home. Juhyun simply questioned where she thought home was. With a confident smirk, he held up a keycard and revealed he had already booked a suite in the hotel. The truth crashed down on Haiwan. This had been his intention from the very beginning. Before she could process her shock, he gently touched her face, leaning in close. He softly asked if she truly hated this idea, cornering her with his manipulative question. The second the hotel room door clicked shut, Juhyun pressed Haiwan against it, capturing her lips in a deep kiss. As his hands roamed, she suddenly realized he had come straight from a long day at the office. Trying to create some space, a flustered Haiwan told him to wait, suggesting she needed to freshen up first. A knowing smirk spread across Juhyun's face. He saw right through her attempt to stall and countered smoothly, asking if she meant they should just go wash up together, cornering her once again. Juhyun's suggestion was clearly not a question. Moments later, Haiwan found herself cornered under the warm spray of the shower as he held her firmly from behind. Waking up the next morning, Haiwan felt every muscle protest. It was the result of a long, intense weekend spent entirely at the hotel with Juhyun. He had been relentless, seeking her out constantly, while they were showering, eating, or just waking up. She was completely drained, amazed that a man 9 years her senior could have such limitless energy. Lying there, barely able to move her arms, Haiwan worried about how she would manage to go to work tomorrow feeling this exhausted. Just as Haiwan was about to rest, Juhyun appeared, fresh from the shower. He teased that seeing her made him ready for another round, causing her to panic. She pleaded that she couldn't handle any more, but he laughed it off, promising he was only joking and that she could rest. Relieved, Haiwan then pointed out the marks he'd left, complaining she wouldn't be able to wear sleeveless tops. Juhyun simply called it perfect, declaring she could now only wear them for him, keeping her away from the troublesome gazes of other men. Haiwan called him a pervert, but Juhyun just laughed. He cheekily reminded her that she was the one crying out for his attention just a little while ago. Seeing her completely flustered, he decided to back off for now. He told her to get some sleep, pointing out she hadn't properly rested in 2 days. Annoyed, Haiwan blamed him internally for her exhaustion. When he joked about another round, she panicked and declared she was going to sleep. This made him chuckle, and he finally promised to let her be, gently patting her goodnight. With his hand resting on her head, Haiwan felt a strange sense of peace. She wondered when she'd ever felt so at ease, only to realize the answer was never. Memories of a painful past surfaced, hardships as a child, and the struggles she endured even after escaping her mother. This life taught her that wanting to like someone was nothing more than a selfish luxury she couldn't afford. To survive, she convinced herself that such feelings didn't matter, tuning out the world around her, like the cheerful birthday party unfolding nearby. Haiwan reflected on a lifetime of suppressing her true feelings just to survive. Lying next to her, Juhyun noticed she was still awake and wondered why she couldn't sleep. Her unexpected kindness was stirring something in him, making him greedy for more. In that quiet moment, the atmosphere between them changed completely. He reached out, gently touching her face. Overwhelmed by a sudden rush of emotion, Haiwan finally confessed that she liked him, too, her voice soft but certain. Lying next to Juhyun, Haiwan replayed her confession in her head. She wished she had been honest about her feelings from the start. But saying the words out loud still felt unfamiliar and frightening, and she didn't quite have the courage for it yet. Internally, she asked him to just wait a little longer for her to sort herself out. But just as she found a moment of fragile happiness, trouble crept back in. Elsewhere, a phone buzzed, an incoming call from Juhyun. A panicked woman answered, her voice shaking as she screamed his name, demanding to know where he was. The next morning, Juhyun dropped Haiwan off at her office. She grumbled about not wanting to work, and he told her to call when she finished. Haiwan quipped that he'd know anyway since he was always monitoring her. Juhyun simply smiled, saying he just wanted an excuse to hear her voice. Completely flustered, she urged him to leave before he was late. Before driving off, however, he leaned out for a surprise peck on her cheek. Mortified, Haiwan yelled his name, shocked by the bold move right in front of her company. Juhyun acknowledged her stubbornness, noting it was why he only asked for a kiss. Before she could protest, he leaned in for a much more passionate one. He then told her to call him after work, leaving a flustered Haiwan to agree as he drove off. Touching her lips, she realized their morning routine felt natural now. In fact, starting the day without him would feel strange. Later, she grabbed a cool drink with a colleague, thankful for a small break from the summer heat and the morning's surprising events. Her coworker pointed out the summer heat, questioning why Haiwan was bundled up. The innocent remark sent Haiwan's mind flashing back to the night before. Since they had officially become lovers, her time with Juhyun had grown far more intense and passionate. Completely flustered by the memories and unsure how to navigate their fast-paced relationship, she decided to ask for help. She cautiously approached her married coworker for advice, pretending it was for a friend. She asked what someone should do at the very beginning of a new relationship. Her coworker immediately saw through the flimsy excuse, excitedly asking if the friend was the handsome man from the dinner party. Haiwan frantically denied it, but her colleague simply offered some advice. She said that at the beginning of a relationship, even simple things like eating together feel special. After her coworker left to take a call, Haiwan's thoughts soured. She doubted a simple meal would be enough for someone as experienced as Juhyun. A sudden, burning jealousy washed over her as she wondered exactly what he was doing right then. Haiwan calls Juhyun, her voice soft as she asks if he's listening. On the other end of the crackling line, Juhyun ignores the chaos erupting around him. He talks about wanting a simple home-cooked meal with her, a stark contrast to his reality. Surrounded by his crew and facing a rival group, he stands in the middle of a tense street fight, his face already cut and bruised. A subordinate urges him to leave, but Juhyun just smirks, remarking on his opponent's lack of manners before preparing to end the confrontation himself. The line went dead with Juhyun's promise to see her later. Haiwan's attempt to call back was met with only an automated message. She stared at the missed call notification, a deep sense of unease washing over her. This was strange. He had never once ignored her before. Ever since they met, he was a constant presence, always waiting outside her work. If he couldn't be there himself, he sent one of his men. It was this unwavering reliability that made his current silence feel so deeply unsettling. Haiwan tried to convince herself that everything was fine. Juhyun was probably just busy or stuck in traffic. But the excuses felt thin, and a cold worry began to spread through her. What if something had actually happened to him? As she walked, lost in thought, a firm hand landed on her shoulder, stopping her in her tracks. She whirled around, startled, to see a man she didn't know. He politely asked for a moment of her time. Her mind raced, and then she remembered. She had seen this man before, reporting directly to Juhyun. The man assured Haiwan that he was sent by the boss, Juhyun. Panicked, she immediately asked if something had happened to him. He simply told her to get in the car, promising to explain on the way. But her instinct screamed that something was wrong. This wasn't the usual car, and the atmosphere felt tense. She refused, insisting she'd just go home on her own. Suddenly, another man, Byung-hun, appeared. He grabbed her arm, coldly stating that Juhyun had ordered this. Whether she liked it or not, she had to come. Powerless, Haiwan was forced to comply. Seeing she had no choice, Haiwan reluctantly agreed to go with them. The man said he would escort her, but made a sudden move first. Before she could react, he grabbed her bag and quickly slipped a folded note into a pocket. He whispered for her to trust him and read it later, leaving her utterly confused. Just then, her phone buzzed to life. The name flashing on the screen sent a shock through her. Kang Ju-hyun. Stunned, she answered, her voice trembling as she managed to say his name. On the phone, Ju-hyun's voice was calm as he instructed Haiwan to go with his man. Confused and upset, she reminded him that she had been worried sick when he didn't show up. He lightly teased her for throwing a tantrum, which only made her angrier. She demanded to know how he could joke at a time like this. The perspective then shifts, revealing Ju-hyun in a hospital bed, clearly injured. Despite his condition, he gently asked her to trust him for now and comply with his men. On the other end of the line, Ju-hyun was visibly injured, yet his voice remained calm. He gently asked Haiwan to trust him for now and go with his man. Utterly lost, she couldn't understand what was happening. The man beside her let out a tired sigh, telling her it was time to go to Ju-hyun. Their car soon pulled up to the impressive Woojin Construction University Hospital. As Haiwan stepped out, the automatic doors slid open, ready to reveal the truth behind this chaotic situation. Haiwan threw the door open, her voice tight with worry as she called Ju-hyun's name. She found him sitting in a hospital bed, covered in bandages but looking surprisingly calm. A wave of relief washed over her just seeing him safe. Rushing to his side, she frantically asked how badly he was hurt. Ju-hyun simply reassured her that it wasn't serious. He then admitted that his injuries were mostly for show, explaining that he had to pretend to be hurt due to the circumstances and apologized for scaring her so much. Ju-hyun explained that he initially thought Byung-hun's men were behind the attack, so he played along with being hurt. However, the situation was more complicated than he realized. The silence from his main rival was deeply unsettling, and Ju-hyun couldn't help but wonder what scheme Byung-hun was secretly planning. Dismissing her lingering worry, he playfully insisted it was just a scrape. To prove he was perfectly fine, he suddenly pulled the startled Haiwan into his arms. Flustered, she immediately told him to stop, not in front of everyone. Haiwan was still confused, asking why a healthy person would need to be admitted. Ju-hyun explained it was just for show, a fake car accident to fool his enemies. He assured her that his associate, Seokjin, was a master at staging these things without anyone getting hurt. Right on cue, Seokjin entered the room carrying a plate of sliced apples. He casually greeted Haiwan as sister-in-law, adding they could even get a nice settlement from it. Stunned, Haiwan could only watch as Ju-hyun fed her an apple, changing the subject completely. Haiwan suddenly recalled a strange encounter from earlier. A man had questioned her about Ju-hyun, discreetly slipping a small object into her bag. Back in the present, sitting uncomfortably with Ju-hyun, she realized she had to check what it was. She made an excuse, telling him she needed to use the restroom. Ju-hyun casually said there was one both inside and outside the ward. Feeling an urgent need for privacy, Haiwan grabbed her bag and rushed out, convinced that whatever this was, Ju-hyun absolutely could not see it. Alone, Haiwan nervously unfolded the note. Her eyes widened at the words. The man wasn't just some stranger. He was a detective conducting an undercover investigation. The note said he was watching over her to warn her of danger and offer help. Suddenly, his cautious gaze made sense. She felt a deep sense of shame, thinking he must have seen her as a desperate woman. But his offer felt hollow. A painful memory surfaced of running to the police as a child for protection, only to be failed. The law had never saved her before. Painful memories confirmed Haiwan's deep-seated distrust. She remembered times she'd been harassed, only for the authorities to dismiss her and offer no help. It was a harsh lesson she had learned repeatedly. No one was coming to save her. With this grim realization, she tore the detective's note into pieces. She couldn't bring herself to trust the police again. After flushing the fragments down the toilet, Haiwan composed herself, figuring she must have looked completely unhinged to the man who was supposedly trying to help her. Returning to the ward, Haiwan felt a crushing sense of resignation. She decided that the only place she could pretend to be happy was right here, with him. She suddenly rushed forward and embraced Ju-hyun, who was initially surprised but then pleased by the affection. He held her close, telling her he would stay with her for the day. Haiwan quietly asked if it was because she was his girlfriend. Liking the sound of that, Ju-hyun pulled her closer and then coldly ordered his men, who were watching nearby, to get out. Ju-hyun held Haiwan close, his expression unsettling. He casually asked if she liked the gift, specifically the one from the detective. Haiwan's body went rigid with fear. She couldn't believe he knew about the note. Staring at him in disbelief, she stammered, asking how he found out. He simply said she was acting so obvious that it would have been strange if he hadn't noticed. Panicked, Haiwan explained that she only read the note before throwing it away. Joo-hyun's voice turned chillingly gentle as he told her not to be scared, insisting he wasn't angry. Joo-hyun held her, his tone unsettlingly reasonable. He questioned why she'd refuse police protection when it was her right as a citizen. Confused, Haiwan asked if he wasn't the one who was supposed to protect her. His expression shifted. He explained that with the current turmoil in his organization, it would be hard for them to stay together for a while. The words hit Haiwan hard. Just hours ago, her heart felt light, but now it sank like a stone. It was a cold reminder from fate itself. She wasn't allowed to be happy. Joo-hyun explained the situation was serious. He told Haiwan that because of major trouble within his organization, they couldn't stay together for a while. The news left her completely stunned. Following that difficult day, they were forced to go their separate ways. 10 days went by, and Haiwan sensed that something huge was happening behind the scenes, but she was kept in the dark. Now, someone named Jaemin handled her commute instead of Joo-hyun. Walking alone, she remained on guard, the distance between them feeling more real than ever. Jaemin's constant presence became Haiwan's new routine. She told him not to be so formal, but he simply stated that he was under orders to ensure her well-being. Unfortunately, his attentive behavior sparked wild rumors at her office. Colleagues whispered that she must be the director's daughter or had a rich sponsor. Later, assistant manager So-young approached her, asking if she was okay after hearing about a stalker. Flustered, Haiwan quickly clarified that her boyfriend had hired a bodyguard for her protection, prompting So-young to warn her to be careful. Though assistant manager So-young managed to quiet some of the office gossip, Haiwan knew it was only a temporary fix. The situation was becoming unbearable. Riding with her bodyguard, Jaemin, she finally asked him how long they had to live like this. She explained that the constant watching at work was too much, and it had been over 10 days since she'd seen Joo-hyun. Jaemin replied that he didn't know, reminding her that she video-called Joo-hyun daily. Frustrated, Haiwan insisted it wasn't the same as meeting in person, feeling completely lost. Jaemin finally revealed the truth. He was a cop, and Joo-hyun had threatened him into becoming her bodyguard. He even offered to help her run away. But Haiwan refused, insisting she trusted Joo-hyun more than him. Jaemin scoffed at her choice, asking if she really trusted a gangster. He then shared a dark memory. His own little sister's life was tragically ruined by a man just like Joo-hyun. He warned Haiwan that her path would only lead to misery, questioning if she could handle that weight as their car sped away. Haiwan calmly told Jaemin she was sorry about his sister, but had already prepared for a difficult life, admitting she was used to being abandoned. Just then, her phone vibrated. A call came through from an unknown number, which she ignored. A moment later, a shocking text arrived. The message claimed the sender was about to die because of her and proposed a meeting. Despite the anonymous message, a vivid memory flashed through Haiwan's mind, and she knew instantly who was trying to contact her after all this time. The mysterious message was from her mother. Haiwan's mind raced, concluding her mom must have tried to take out another loan in her name and failed. Just when she'd found some semblance of peace, her mother had shattered it again. She wondered how far she would be dragged down this time. Noticing her struggling to breathe, Jaemin asked if he should pull over. Fighting back the turmoil, Haiwan insisted she was fine. Internally, she resigned herself to the pain, telling herself she was used to her mother's whims and just had to endure. As Haiwan reeled from her mother's message, another call came through. It was Joo-hyun. She hesitated, knowing he would worry if she ignored it, but he'd worry even more if he saw her distressed face. Steeling herself, she answered. Joo-hyun's voice was light as he asked why she was hiding from the video call. Seeing his face made her resolve crumble, and she fought to keep her composure when he called her name again, sensing her silence. She told herself she couldn't afford to seem weak. Haiwan's resolve shattered. Hearing Joo-hyun's voice, she whispered his name and confessed that she missed him. The vulnerable admission slipped out before she could stop it. Panicked, she quickly tried to play it off, insisting it was nothing and that she just said it without thinking. But Joo-hyun heard the distress in her voice. He grew serious, telling her he would call back when he got home. Before he could say more, Haiwan ended the call. The moment she hung up, she finally broke down, crying in the car. Overwhelmed with emotion, Haiwan tried to calm herself with a method from her childhood. She hoped that if she just counted, the feeling would eventually pass. Lost in her grief, She quietly whispered the numbers, trying to ride out the wave of sadness. Just as she was counting, the sharp screech of tires cut through the quiet parking garage. A car had pulled up right next to her. Before she could even process it, a hand gently wiped a tear from her cheek. It was Joo-hyun. He had found her. Overwhelmed, Haiwan tried to calm herself with a familiar trick, promising she would move once she counted to 30. She whispered the numbers, trying to push back the wave of emotion. 27, 28. Suddenly, a sharp knock on her window broke the silence. Her head snapped up just as she reached her final count. It was Joo-hyun. His expression was intense and unreadable as he looked down at her. He didn't ask what was wrong. He simply told her to open the door. His sudden appearance left her completely stunned. Overwhelmed, Haiwan tried a familiar trick, counting to 30 to calm her nerves. Just as she whispered the final number, a sharp knock on the window startled her. She looked up, shocked to see Joo-hyun staring down at her. Without asking what was wrong, he simply told her to open the door. His command triggered a dark memory of her childhood, where she constantly had to navigate her volatile mother's unpredictable moods. The suffocating pressure she felt back then was suddenly all too real again in the present moment. Her mind flashes back to a childhood spent walking on eggshells. Living with her mother was a constant state of tension, where a simple comment could trigger a violent mood swing. The memory of a shattered picture frame is still vivid. What made it worse were the rare moments of warmth that always held her back, making it impossible to leave. After finally escaping that life, Haiwan built walls around her heart. She decided it was better never to expect anything from anyone than to be betrayed after learning to trust. Joo-hyun called her name, his voice breaking through her spiraling thoughts. As he spoke, flashes of other men from her past flickered in her mind. She felt like she was sinking into dark water, completely overwhelmed by her emotions. A single thought surfaced. Why was it so hard to refuse the hand he was offering? In a sudden move, she lunged out of the car and into his arms. Clinging to him, she called out his name, a wave of relief washing over her as he held her steady. Joo-hyun, flustered by the sudden embrace, asked if she was okay. Clutching his shirt, Haiwan confessed she just desperately needed to see him. He quickly understood, realizing she was still shaken from their phone call earlier. He noted her voice had sounded different and was simply relieved that she was safe. But the comforting moment shifted. He declared there wasn't time to go to her place. Ordering his driver away, he pressed her back against the car, leaving Haiwan stunned and confused by his sudden intensity. His intentions were becoming alarmingly clear. Joo-hyun abruptly pushed Haiwan back into the car. He casually remarked that a bigger car would have been more convenient, even musing about buying a camper van. While Haiwan processed his unsettling words, he loosened his tie. A sudden click echoed through the car as the doors locked, sealing her inside with him. He moved in close, his intentions now undeniable. After an intense moment, he commented on her physical reaction to their kiss, mockingly questioning how she could be so affected by so little. He made it clear he was in control. The scene shifts to Haiwan in a car with another man, Byung-hun. As he straightens his shirt, she apologetically grabs his tie. She feels bad for leaving so soon, especially since he skipped another appointment for her. Byung-hun casually dismisses her worries, joking that he just wanted to avoid getting nagged. His tone then becomes serious. He tells Haiwan he's noticed how anxious she has been lately. Looking at her with concern, he promises that no matter what, he will put an end to her situation soon, asking her to trust him. Before she could react to his promise, Byung-hun pulled her into a hug, his next words catching her completely off guard. He confessed that he loved her. Haiwan froze, totally flustered and at a loss for words. All she could manage to say was for him to be safe and come back. Byung-hun simply smiled, promising he would and telling her to wait. He gently reminded her to take care of herself while he was gone, then got into his car. As he drove off, she realized she was too shocked to respond properly. Watching Byung-hun walk away, Haiwan's shock fades into a gentle smile. She now understands her true feelings and makes a silent promise. The next time she sees him, she will confess that she loves him, too. The scene then changes to the imposing Woojin Group headquarters at night. Inside an office, a man enters the room and is immediately met by the stern-faced Chairman Lee. With a look of disapproval, the chairman simply states that the man is late, making it clear he is not pleased. Sun-young calmly explains that he was late because the traffic was heavy. Unimpressed, Chairman Lee pats him on the head, saying he heard rumors that a woman was the real reason for his delay. He mockingly adds that even an old flame can be a distraction. Visibly annoyed, Sun-young asks if it is appropriate for him to gossip like this. The chairman simply calls him arrogant and cuts to the chase, stating he knows Sun-young has been causing trouble in Byung-hun's territory. With a slight smirk, Sun-young tells him to phrase it properly. Joo-hyun defends himself, telling Chairman Lee that Byung-hun started the conflict, which even resulted in a hospital visit for him. Unimpressed, the chairman scolds them for brawling like children. Internally, Joo-hyun scoffs at his 43-year-old brother tattling to their father. He admits that he would normally let things slide, but this time was different. Knowing Byung-hun would eventually target Haiwan, Joo-hyun went to his territory himself. He dismantled his brother's operations to send a clear message that he wouldn't stand by any longer, but Byung-hun never showed. Joo-hyun realizes the chairman is hiding Byung-hun. He internally scoffs at the family's one principle that brothers must not fight, considering Byung-hun has tried to harm him multiple times without consequence. Chairman Lee dismisses the conflict, claiming it was just an older brother disciplining his younger sibling. Finding this excuse utterly ridiculous, Joo-hyun bursts into laughter. His sudden, disrespectful reaction leaves the chairman shocked and furious. He angrily demands to know what has gotten into his son, calling his behavior a disgrace. Joo-hyun offers a sarcastic apology. He explains that the idea of Byung-hun disciplining him with a blade was just too absurd not to laugh at. This final act of disrespect is too much for the chairman. Enraged, he throws a handkerchief that slaps squarely against Joo-hyun's face. Fuming, Chairman Lee calls his son insolent and banishes him, ordering him to leave for China at once. Unfazed by the outburst, Joo-hyun calmly pulls the cloth away, quietly contemplating his father's command. Joo-hyun internally acknowledges his father's threat. He knows that being sent to China is a permanent exile, a fate for all those the chairman wants to disappear. However, Joo-hyun believes his father's power has faded, seeing him as a toothless tiger. When asked if he has anything else to say, Joo-hyun calmly replies that he'll think about it. He then steps forward, placing the handkerchief back in the chairman's hand. Leaning in close, Joo-hyun quietly advises his father to worry about his own health before meddling with his sons, leaving the old man shaken. With a final, chilling piece of advice, Joo-hyun tells his father to be careful walking at night. The chairman is left seething with rage as his son calmly turns and walks away. As he leaves, Joo-hyun analyzes the situation. He knows that the attempt to exile him to China is a desperate move, revealing his father's weakness. Realizing his enemies are feeling the pressure, he decides it's the perfect time to accelerate his plans. He pulls out his phone, and his subordinate on the other end answers immediately, ready for his boss's orders. Just as Joo-hyun is making his move, he's interrupted by Seokjin, who stumbles toward him in a panic. He asks what's wrong. Seokjin breathlessly reports that he's lost contact with both Haiwan and a detective. Joo-hyun's calm demeanor shatters instantly, and he demands to know what Seokjin just said. A grim image flashes through his mind. Haiwan, captured and helpless. He knows immediately who is responsible, internally cursing his rival, Lee Byung-hun, for making such a reckless move. Haiwan slowly wakes up to a pounding headache and total confusion. She has no memory of what happened or where she is. When she tries to speak or move, a wave of terror washes over her. She realizes her mouth is covered and her hands are bound behind her back. Pure panic sets in as she struggles helplessly against her restraints, her mind racing to figure out what's going on. To understand her predicament, the story flashes back to 3 hours earlier, setting the scene in the sprawling city. Haiwan tries to eat the meal Joo-hyun prepared, but she has no appetite. A recent text from her mother has left her deeply unsettled. She attempts to push the thought away, knowing her mother isn't one to give up easily. As she mulls over the strange message, her phone suddenly vibrates. 2 more texts have come through. She looks at the screen, and her expression freezes in shock. The message was simple, but its contents were clearly terrifying, leaving her completely stunned and grasping her phone in disbelief. The texts were simple but chilling. One was an address. The other was a photo of her colleague, So-young, enjoying dinner with her family. The unspoken threat was clear, and Haiwan's mind spun with worst-case scenarios. Her hands trembled as she considered calling the police. Just then, her phone vibrated with an incoming call. It was Jae-min. He could hear the panic in her voice and told her to stay calm. He was coming over and warned her not to open the door for anyone else but him. The lock on the door clicks, and Haiwan calls out Jaemin's name, filled with a moment of hope. But that hope shatters when the door opens. Instead of her friend, several intimidating men in dark suits are standing there. Her voice trembles as she demands to know who they are. The leader simply smirks while pulling on a pair of white gloves. He advises her not to waste her strength and to come along quietly. Frozen in place, Haiwan is overwhelmed by pure terror, understanding she is completely trapped. Haiwan's mind raced, desperately wondering where Jaemin was. The leader smirked, asking if she was looking for that little cop, confirming her worst fears. He then snatched her phone away, mockingly asking if she was hoping for Jaehyun to show up instead. The device slipped from his grasp, shattering on the floor. He laughed cruelly, telling her to wake up from that dream because no one was coming to save her. Before she could react, he seized her from behind, pressing a cloth over her mouth and silencing her completely. As her consciousness faded, Haiwan's last thought was of Jaehyun. The leader instructed his men to move, deciding to leave the cop behind as he would only be trouble. He smirked, knowing this act would be enough to get a reaction out of Kang Jaehyun. When Haiwan awoke, she was in a vehicle, unable to speak. Through the window, she witnessed a heated exchange. A woman argued that she was promised a full payment for delivering the girl. The other replied coolly, telling her to be grateful she was getting anything at all. Haiwan woke up on a cold, dusty floor. She was in an abandoned construction site, a place completely cut off from the world. Her hands were bound, but she thought she might be able to escape if she could just get them free. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out, asking if she was awake. Haiwan looked up in disbelief. It was her own mother, standing there with another woman. Seeing their shameless expressions, Haiwan struggled in pure rage, but her cries were muffled. Her mother simply ordered the gag removed, coldly stating no one could hear her scream anyway. With the gag removed, Haiwan stared at her mother, demanding to know why. Her mother just smiled, shamelessly admitting she did it for the money. She explained that she was broke and that an opportunity like this was too good to pass up. Haiwan was disgusted, unable to believe her mother would call handing her over for cash an opportunity. Just then, the other woman, So-young, spoke up. Guessing this was about Jaehyun, she apologized for her previous rudeness. A glimmer of hope appeared for Haiwan. She had to convince So-young to help. Haiwan desperately tries to downplay her importance, claiming her relationship with Jaehyun was just a brief encounter. So-young bursts out laughing, calling her hopelessly naive. She explains how difficult the kidnapping was, revealing that Jaehyun's men and even the police were watching Haiwan's every move. Sarcastically, So-young points out that Haiwan had more protection than she, the daughter of the powerful Musung group, ever did. The more Jaehyun treasures Haiwan, the higher the price they can demand. Patting her head condescendingly, she tells Haiwan to behave if she wants to live. The awful truth crashed down on Haiwan. This was never about them hating her relationship with Jaehyun. They were using her as bait to lure him into a trap. She felt a surge of panic, blaming herself for putting him in danger. Just then, So-young called out that they were ready for someone named Byung-hun. A man with wine-colored hair emerged from the darkness. Haiwan's blood ran cold as she recognized him. He looked at her with a chilling smile, seeing her only as the woman Jaehyun was obsessed with. Jaehyun returned to the apartment, his face bruised from a recent struggle. The room was in total disarray, a chair was knocked over, and a phone lay shattered on the floor. One of his men stood with a grim look, delivering the terrible news. He cursed under his breath, confirming that Haiwan was gone. As Jaehyun stared into the empty space, memories flooded his mind. He remembered her bright smile, the one that always greeted him and made this place finally feel like home. But the warmth of that memory vanished, replaced by a cold, harsh reality. She wasn't here. Jaehyun's rage finally snapped. He grabbed the bruised Jong Jae-min by his shirt, demanding to know how a cop could fail to protect one woman. Ashamed, Jae-min admitted he had no excuse. Jaehyun's hand trembled with fury before he let the man go. He knew yelling wouldn't change anything. A heavy weight settled in his chest as the truth sank in. This wasn't Jaemin's fault, it was his. He was the one who failed Haiwan, and the blame was entirely his to carry. Jaehyun's mind is a storm of regret. He calls himself an idiot, realizing he was wandering outside while his home was invaded. He remembers the vow he made to protect Haiwan, a promise that now feels like a lie. His memory drifts to her past smile, the one he desperately wanted to restore. But every choice he made, every attempt to shield her, only pushed her into greater danger. He concludes with a heavy heart that if she ever learned the full truth of his actions, she would hate him for the rest of her life. Joo-hyun's thoughts grew desperate. He didn't care if Haiwan loved or hated him, he just needed her back by his side. Snapping out of his grief, he grabbed Jaemin and demanded to know where she could be. The shaken officer admitted that a few places came to mind. That was all Joo-hyun needed to hear. He immediately began issuing orders, telling his men to check all CCTV, vehicle routes, and call records. He then commanded Lee Seokjin to search every private property belonging to the Musung Group, giving a final, chilling warning. No one would be forgiven for missing a single lead. Joo-hyun's phone buzzes with a restricted number. He instantly recognizes the caller's identity, Lee Byung-hun. After answering, he's met with a chillingly casual greeting. Joo-hyun cuts straight to the point, demanding to know where he is. On the other end, Byung-hun simply laughs, mocking Joo-hyun for his lost manners. The scene then reveals Haiwan, bound and helpless. With a sinister calm, Byung-hun asks her if Joo-hyun treats her this poorly too, twisting the knife and enjoying the power he holds over them both. On the phone with Joo-hyun, Byung-hun makes a twisted offer to Haiwan, suggesting she come to him instead. She fiercely rejects the idea, declaring that Joo-hyun is on a completely different level. Hearing this, Joo-hyun's voice turns cold. He orders Byung-hun to deal with him directly and leave Haiwan out of their conflict. Byung-hun only laughs, finding Joo-hyun's reaction entertaining. He gloats to his companion that he never imagined seeing Joo-hyun so flustered over a woman, leaving Haiwan to listen in horror, completely trapped in the twisted game. Panicked, Haiwan screams into the phone, pleading with Joo-hyun not to let Byung-hun manipulate him because of her. Before she can say more, a hand clamps over her mouth, silencing her completely. Hearing the struggle, Joo-hyun shouts her name in alarm. To Haiwan's horror, the person holding her is her own mother, who coldly tells her to stay quiet if she wants to live. On the other end of the line, Byung-hun calmly threatens Joo-hyun, warning that if he keeps acting out, Haiwan's safe return isn't guaranteed. The call ends abruptly. Byung-hun pockets his phone, turning his full attention to Haiwan, who is gagged and restrained by her own mother. Managing to get the gag loose, she furiously asks why he is doing this to Joo-hyun. Her defiance is cut short by a sharp sound, her head snapping to the side. Byung-hun smirks, finding it amusing that she's worried about Joo-hyun. He calls her love-touching before admitting he now believes the rumors. She truly is Joo-hyun's greatest weakness, and he intends to exploit it. Byung-hun tells Haiwan that she's made things much easier for him. Seeing her in person, he remarks that she's actually cute. As his hand moves toward her, she begs him not to, her mind racing with the terrible thing he plans to do. A sharp click echoes as he makes his intentions undeniable. Bound and helpless, Haiwan sees others in the room simply watching. She desperately prays for anyone to help her, but Byung-hun just looms over her, his hand covering her face and silencing her completely. As Haiwan braced for the worst, the sharp click of heels echoed in the room. Her own mother stepped forward, coolly telling Byung-hun to wait. With her daughter kneeling captive beside her, she made an audacious offer, asking why he would bother with a brat when he could have her instead. Byung-hun simply scoffed, finding the pathetic proposition amusing. For Haiwan, the betrayal was absolute. Her world shattered as she stared in horror at the very woman who was supposed to be her protector, now revealing her true, monstrous nature. As Haiwan braced for the worst, the sharp click of heels echoed in the room. Her own mother stepped forward, coolly telling Byung-hun to wait. With her daughter kneeling captive beside her, she made an audacious offer, asking why he would bother with a brat when he could have her instead. Byung-hun simply scoffed, finding the pathetic proposition amusing. For Haiwan, the betrayal was absolute. She stared in horror at the very woman who was supposed to be her protector, now revealing her true, monstrous nature. Haiwan's mother clings to Byung-hun, shamelessly telling him she's a woman before a mother and hinting at her other skills. Utterly repulsed by the pathetic display, Byung-hun forcefully shoves her away. Having had enough of the scene, he turns and calls for a woman named Yoongi-hyun to come with him. Though surprised, she agrees. Before leaving, Byung-hun gives a chilling order to his subordinate: keep a close watch on both Haiwan and her mother. His man quietly affirms the command, sealing their fate. Left alone, Haiwan felt a fleeting moment of relief that Byung-hun was gone. But her mind reeled from her mother's disgusting behavior. She debated her next move, realizing that waiting for Jaehyun would only lead him into a trap and put him in danger. Before she could decide, one of Byung-hun's subordinates grabbed her by the hair, pulling her back sharply. He revealed his betrayal, stating he had already bribed the guard. Haiwan's hope vanished. She had only traded one captor for another. The subordinate impatiently told Haiwan to get up and follow him. With her hands bound, Haiwan stumbled, too weak to move quickly. Annoyed by the delay, the man grabbed her wrist to drag her forward. Suddenly, another hand clamped down on his arm, stopping him. It was Haiwan's mother. Haiwan stared in disbelief, wondering why the woman who just betrayed her was suddenly saving her. Her mother pulled her back, then turned with a strange smile, assuring her that help was on the way. Haiwan felt a deep sense of unease. A chilling sense of déjà vu washed over Haiwan. Her mother's reassuring smile was a mask she knew all too well. It was the same smile she wore when she took out a loan in Haiwan's name, and the same one she used when feigning motherly love. This was the smile of manipulation. Snapping back to reality, Haiwan gripped her own hand, trembling. She couldn't fall for it again. Steeling herself, she resolved to stop letting the woman who gave birth to her push her around. Haiwan's mother patronizingly told her to get her priorities straight, saying that escaping was more important than any questions. Haiwan offered a brief thanks for being saved, but internally, her resolve hardened. She promised herself that her mother would no longer control her like she did in the past. Haiwan was not that same child desperate for affection anymore. But just as she embraced this newfound strength, a sharp crack echoed through the air. Her mother had struck her across the face, leaving Haiwan completely shocked and reeling from the impact. Her mother scoffed, criticizing Haiwan's difficult personality. With a glare, Haiwan retorted that she took after the woman who raised her. This earned a twisted compliment. Her mother was impressed she managed to attract a man as important as Jaehyun. The real plan was then revealed. She was going to demand 300 million won from him. Haiwan realized this wasn't a rescue, but a scheme. Her mother cruelly admitted that if she had known sooner, she would have used Haiwan's connection to Jaehyun long ago. Haiwan's mother let out a chilling laugh, revealing the next step of her vile plan. She instructed Haiwan to lie to Jaehyun and claim she was expecting a child. Handing her a phone, she ordered her to make the call so she could take over and secure the money. Furious, Haiwan questioned what kind of person her mother truly was. In an act of defiance, she smacked the phone out of her mother's hand. The woman simply scoffed, muttering that her daughter was all book smarts with no common sense. To her mother, Haiwan was nothing more than a cash machine. She finally understood that no matter how much she struggled, she would always end up back in this woman's grasp. Questioning how she could ever break the cycle, a new resolve hardened her expression. Without another word, Haiwan turned and bolted from the room. Her mother stood in shock, annoyed that she couldn't wait to make the call. But as she reached out, Haiwan shoved her hard. The woman crumpled to the floor, asking if her daughter had lost her mind. With a new, terrifying resolve, Haiwan ran outside and grabbed a heavy block. She was convinced she had to cut her mother from her life with her own hands. But just as she prepared to take a desperate step, she faltered. In that split second of hesitation, the loud screech of tires cut through the air and a powerful voice screamed her name. Suddenly, a hand shot out, forcefully stopping her arm as the block was taken from her grasp. Stunned, Haiwan looked up and saw Jaehyun standing right there. With a new, terrifying resolve, Haiwan ran outside and grabbed a heavy block. But just as she prepared to take a desperate step, a hand shot out, forcefully stopping her. Stunned, Haiwan looked up to see Jaehyun standing right there, the block now in his grasp. He looked down at her, questioning her distressed expression. Her mind raced, unable to comprehend how he had found her. But as he held her, his inner thoughts revealed a chilling satisfaction. This broken, desperate look on her face was exactly the expression he had wanted to see. Haiwan couldn't believe it. Of all the moments for Jaehyun to appear, it had to be now. This was her one chance to finally sever the toxic bond with her mother, a desperate move she felt was her only way out. Jaehyun forcefully pried the block from her hand, warning her to calm down before something terrible happened. But Haiwan was beyond reason, screaming that she didn't care and demanding he let her go. He softened his tone, promising to release her if she would just compose herself first. Jaehyun looked down at the distraught Haiwan, admitting to himself that he'd underestimated how deeply her mother's issues affected her. Realizing she had to be smart, Haiwan decided to play along. She told him she was calm now and begged him to release her, hoping he would loosen his grip. But her desperate plea was met with an unexpected response. Instead of letting her go, Jaehyun suddenly pulled her into a tight embrace, leaving Haiwan completely shocked and trapped in his arms. His intentions were anything but clear. Holding her close, Jaehyun tells Haiwan that if she has a request, she should ask properly. His inner thoughts reveal a dark offer. He would permanently handle anyone who caused her pain, by any means necessary. He just needed her to say the word. Haiwan is completely stunned by the sheer extremity of his proposition. The heavy block slips from her hand, clattering to the ground. Overwhelmed with shock and shame, she apologizes, questioning her own recent desperation and his terrifying willingness to act on it. Overwhelmed by the intense confrontation, Haiwan finally collapses into tears, clinging to Jaehyun. She sobs that she was so scared, releasing all her pent-up fear and desperation. He holds her firmly, reassuring her that everything is okay now. As her mother lies unconscious nearby, Jaehyun decides the situation is handled. He lifts a stunned Haiwan into his arms and begins to carry her away. When she weakly protests that she can walk, he shuts her down with a simple, firm no, making it clear she has no choice in the matter. As Jaehyun carries the weakened Haiwan, he questions how she expected to walk when she couldn't even stand. Internally, Haiwan realizes her recent outburst was just years of suppressed feelings about her mother finally exploding. He then apologizes, admitting that his attempt to protect her is what put her in danger in the first place. Looking up at him, Haiwan insists he doesn't need to be sorry, as it wasn't his fault. In that moment, she accepts that whatever his true intentions are, she simply can't bring herself to hate him. As Jaehyun carries her, Haiwan's racing heart finally calms. She feels a sense of warmth she's never known, and in this quiet moment, she whispers that she loves him. Jaehyun immediately stops walking and asks if he heard her right. Snapped back to reality, a mortified Haiwan tries to take it back, her face flushing with embarrassment. Ignoring her denial, he places her on the ground. Before she can explain herself, he leans in close, making it clear the conversation isn't over and sending her heart pounding once more. Jaehyun refuses to let the moment pass, telling Haiwan to lift her head. He asks if he heard her right. Did she really just confess her love? A flustered Haiwan can only manage a small yes. He pushes, asking her to repeat it while looking him in the eyes. She protests that it's too embarrassing. Seeing her shy away, he gently tilts her chin up. Instead of waiting for her to speak, he makes his own declaration, telling her plainly, "I love you, Haiwan," leaving her completely stunned by his directness. Jaehyun pulls Haiwan into an embrace, his promise both devoted and chilling. He tells her he would give her anything. He would even get rid of her mother or set the world on fire if she wished. All he asks for in return is one simple thing, for her to stay healthy by his side. He vows to protect her, prompting Haiwan to ask if this means they'll be completely honest with each other. After a brief, unreadable pause, he looks down at her and calmly agrees. Of course. With a smile, Jaehyun tells Haiwan they'll go to the hospital. He then gives a cryptic warning, reminding her what happens to those who get in his way. When she asks about her kidnappers, he says Seokjin is dealing with them. Elsewhere, Seokjin is clearly annoyed by the muffled cries of the captured Byung-hun and Soyoung. He grabs a bat with a menacing grin, promising he'll teach them a painful lesson for what they did to Haiwan before he's finished with them. Their eyes widen in absolute terror. After escaping their captors, Jaehyun brings Haiwan to a hospital owned by Woojin for treatment. Once the doctor finishes, Jaehyun makes a demand that alarms Haiwan. He instructs the doctor to forge a note for her company. He then tells her it's all over and that he's booked a nearby hotel for them to rest. When she questions it, he explains his own apartment is a mess from his frantic search for her. Haiwan realizes going home is impossible right now, but this new arrangement leaves her feeling deeply unsettled. Just as Haiwan thought the ordeal was finally over, a knock echoed from the hospital room door. An unexpected visitor had arrived. From the hallway, a man introduced himself as Jong Jae-min, asking to speak with her. Jaehyun's face instantly darkened with rage. Before he could react, Haiwan grabbed his arm, stopping him. Realizing this might be her only chance, she insisted that she also wanted to talk with Jae-min. She tried to calm the situation, reminding a very displeased Jaehyun that the man was a police officer and nothing would happen. The police officer, Jae-min, apologized sincerely to Haiwan, expressing deep regret that he couldn't protect her from her ordeal. Haiwan insisted it wasn't his fault, admitting she had also been careless. Jaemin's expression then turned grim as he brought up his younger sister. He reminded Haiwan of the tragic story, how his sister got involved with a man from a dangerous world, suffered immensely, and ultimately ended her own life. He warned her that he had seen this outcome too many times. Even if Jaehyun seems different, that lifestyle always brings heartbreaking risks. Haiwan realized Jaemin's concern came from seeing his late sister in her. But as she thought back on her own past hardships, she knew her life would have been over long ago, if not for Jaehyun. The officer continued, telling her it wasn't too late and offering his help. With a serene smile, Haiwan politely thanked him for his kindness. She then firmly stated that this was the life she had chosen and her source of happiness. She told Jaemin not to worry and wished that he, too, would find his own peace. Jaemin left with a look of total confusion, unable to understand her choice. But Haiwan was fine with that. She turned to Jaehyun and called his name, then suddenly declared she wanted to go to their house immediately. She didn't need anyone else's approval for her feelings. However, their tender moment was shattered when they walked through the door. The entire apartment had been completely ransacked. Furniture was overturned and muddy footprints covered the floor, a clear sign that they had uninvited guests. Jaehyun acknowledges the mess, explaining that he'd planned on taking her to a hotel. But Haiwan simply smiles, insisting it's okay. She declares that even if it's messy, this is still their home, the place she loves most because of him. Her mind floods with memories of all their firsts in that apartment, sharing meals, him drying her hair, and the night their connection deepened significantly. Snapping out of her flustered thoughts, Jaehyun gently says she must be tired. Thankfully, the bedroom is untouched, and he suggests they finally get some rest. As they stood in the bedroom, Haiwan tugged on Jaehyun's shirt, shyly asking if they were really just going to sleep. With a serious look, he flatly replied, "No." He told her not to make him into some scoundrel who loses his composure over an injured person. Haiwan insisted she only had bruises, lifting her shirt to show him the marks. The sight clearly affected him, and he warned her not to provoke him. She just smiled brightly, declaring that when it was him, she liked everything. Her honesty was dangerously captivating. Deciding it was her turn to take the lead, Haiwan leaned in and kissed a surprised Jaehyun. Her boldness only grew as her hands went to his shirt. Visibly caught off guard, he asked where she had learned to be so forward. Haiwan simply smiled, asking who he thought her teacher was, knowing full well she learned it all from him. Soon after, he was already up and getting dressed in his suit. Watching him adjust his tie, Haiwan asked if he was leaving again without even resting. He coolly replied that he had a lot of backlogged work. As if that wasn't enough, he added that it would be difficult for him to come home for a while, leaving her alone with his chilling words just after getting the confession he wanted. Jaehyun apologized for not being able to stay by her side. Sitting up in bed, Haiwan quietly asked how long he would be gone. He admitted he wasn't sure but promised to keep in touch. To ensure her complete isolation, he revealed he had tripled her security detail. He leaned in, giving her a soft kiss on the temple before telling her to rest. Haiwan, playing her part, said she would miss him. The moment he was back at his office, however, his focus was already on business, asking if someone had been safely sent away. Jaehyun's assistant confirmed that Chairman Young understood his mistake and would not retaliate, valuing his business ties more than his own daughter. When asked about Lee Byung-hun, the assistant noted he was already self-destructing over a recent scandal and suggested they simply add pressure. Jaehyun coldly agreed, envisioning a future where Byung-hun's downfall would be seen as inevitable. He then planned a separate, unfortunate accident for Chairman Lee. Having mapped out the grim fates of his enemies, Jaehyun turned his attention to his next target. With his enemy's fate sealed, Jaehyun turned to his final loose end. He dismissed his assistant, stepping alone into a private room. Inside, a woman was bound and gagged, kneeling in terror. Jaehyun calmly identified her as Kim Myung, Haiwan's mother. He knelt before her, commenting on her resemblance to her daughter. He then revealed he knew all about how she had abandoned Haiwan and used people to get by. A cold realization dawned on him. This was the very woman his Haiwan had begged him so desperately to save. Jaehyun internally called Haiwan foolish for wanting to save this woman. Facing the terrified Kim Myung, he calmly presented her with a chance. He proposed sending her to a company factory in Vietnam to earn an honest living. The reality was a cruel trap, a life of endless labor where her meager wages would be garnished for food, lodging, and her debt to Haiwan. He told her she would be released only after paying it all back. With a chilling smile, he added that she should feel honored. His usual solution was far more permanent. As Joo-hyun's man departed, he offered Haiwan's terrified mother a cold good luck. Her muffled cries for help were ignored as the door clicked shut, sealing her fate. Finally alone, Joo-hyun let out a heavy sigh, his work now complete. With all loose ends tied up, his thoughts immediately turned to the reason behind his actions. He quietly admitted how much he missed Haiwan. Meanwhile, Haiwan lay awake in a comfortable bed, staring at the ceiling. A wave of guilt washed over her as she wondered if she should really be resting instead of working. The guilt of resting was too much for Haiwan. She was on sick leave, but felt fine, which made her feel like she was skipping out on her responsibilities. Deciding that lying around wouldn't solve anything, she resolved to tidy up the messy house. Although Joo-hyun offered to hire professional cleaners, she found a sense of fulfillment in doing the work herself. As she was dusting a shelf, her hand brushed against something old and forgotten. She pulled out a dusty piece of clothing, discovering it was her old middle school uniform. Haiwan stared at the object, completely baffled. Why was her middle school shoe pouch, with her name still faintly visible, hidden in Joo-hyun's bookcase? A chill ran down her spine. No matter how much he had researched her, there was no way he could have obtained something so personal from her past. She knew she would have to ask him about it later.
Just then, her phone rang.
Putting on a strained, cheerful voice, she answered, brightly insisting to Joo-hyun on the other end that she had already eaten and was doing just fine. Haiwan decided against asking about the shoe pouch. Joo-hyun had been swamped with work at the Woojin group for days, and she didn't want to add to his stress. To distract herself, she clicked on the TV, only to see Joo-hyun's face on a news report. He had become a major public figure after his rival, Byung-hun, was caught in a scandal and Chairman Lee's health declined. His newfound fame only made it harder for her to see him. The report then began detailing his well-known tragic past. The news detailed Joo-hyun's steady climb at Woojin Construction, noting his rise to executive director by 34. As the report focused on an incident 10 years ago, when he was just 24, something clicked for Haiwan. She felt she had seen his younger face somewhere before. A memory suddenly surfaced, transporting her back to a stormy night in middle school. Burdened by worries far beyond her years, she recalled how finding a young, injured man collapsed in the rain outside her house didn't even feel that unusual. That rainy night, young Haiwan found a man collapsed in an alley. She told him he shouldn't be sleeping there, assuming he was just drunk. But as she got closer, a gasp escaped her lips. The man was clutching a serious injury. Panic seized her. She couldn't call for help. With her family's terrible reputation, she knew she would be blamed. Fearing homelessness and an even worse fate orchestrated by her mother, Haiwan made a desperate decision. She resolved to bring the mysterious, injured man home herself, covering his face to hide him. Struggling under the man's weight, Haiwan carried him through the rainy streets as people nearby searched for someone named Joo-hyun who had been injured. The next morning, she found him still unconscious. She needed to leave for school but noticed he hadn't moved since the night before. Hearing him breathing steadily, she decided he wasn't a threat and that it was safe to leave him. Before going, her curiosity got the better of her, and she gently pulled back his hood, revealing an unexpectedly handsome face that left her blushing. As Haiwan worried about her mysterious guest, his eyes suddenly snapped open. A scream escaped her as she fell backward in shock. The man sat up, groggily asking where he was. Haiwan nervously explained that she had found him collapsed outside her house. The man's expression hardened as he realized the attack from Byung-hun was no dream. Despite his serious injury, he thanked Haiwan and tried to stand up, only to stagger from the pain. She immediately rushed forward, insisting that he couldn't leave after losing so much blood. Haiwan insisted he stay, assuring him her mom would be home late. The man, however, made his way to the door. He turned and cautioned her against her kindness, warning that it was a dangerous world for someone like her. He expressed his gratitude and promised to repay her someday, but told her never to risk herself for a stranger again. Stunned by his genuine concern, Haiwan watched him go. She then found he had left his jacket behind, leaving a chocolate bar and some bandages as a thank you. Haiwan grabbed onto the man, refusing to let him go. She promised to be more careful, but insisted on helping him until he fully recovered. To make her point, she told him he better not die before he could repay her. Touched by her stubborn concern, the man smiled softly and agreed. He promised to repay his debt someday and then walked out the door. However, he never returned, and as years went by, the memory faded. Back in the present, Haiwan suddenly gasped, recalling a shoe pouch she had given him. Haiwan finally understood. The boy from 10 years ago and the man before her were the same person. This explained his polished new image, but she was annoyed he kept it a secret. She wanted to demand an explanation, but couldn't reach him with reporters swarming and Jaehyun insisting on keeping his distance to protect her. As a new plan formed in her mind, Jaehyun sat miserable in his office. Overwhelmed by work, all he could think about was how much he missed Haiwan and wished he could go home. As Jaehyun's assistant tried to reassure the overworked director, his colleague Seokjin suddenly burst into the office. He frantically announced it was an emergency. Annoyed by the interruption and the informal title, Jaehyun tried to correct him. But Seokjin insisted this was far more important. The emergency was that Ms. Haiwan had arrived. Right on cue, Haiwan made her entrance, looking absolutely radiant and confident. Her bold move left the stressed-out director completely speechless, catching him completely off guard. Haiwan arrived at a restaurant reunion, admitting she should have come sooner. Her old friend Hyungjin was there, sitting beside a very friendly woman. The woman cheerfully introduced herself as Minjong, telling Haiwan she had heard a lot about her from Hyungjin. This reunion was a perfectly timed opportunity for Haiwan. However, she was caught off guard when Minjong casually referred to Hyungjin as Appa, suggesting a closeness that Haiwan hadn't expected. This new development left her momentarily speechless. Minjong encouraged Haiwan to speak casually with her and Hyungjin, eager for them all to become friends. Hyungjin proposed a toast to their new bond, and the three clinked their glasses together. As Haiwan took a drink, she reflected on how little she'd ever socialized with people her own age. Her thoughts were interrupted when Hyungjin asked if she was okay after her accident. She quickly reassured him it wasn't serious, internally remembering she had lied, and told them it was a car crash to hide the truth of her situation. Hyungjin asked if her boyfriend was taking good care of her. Haiwan gave a vague reply, saying he treated her well but had been too busy to talk much. Minjong was instantly outraged, declaring that a real boyfriend would check on his sick girlfriend no matter what. After learning there was a 9-year age gap between them, Minjong insisted a 34-year-old man should be doting on her constantly. She pointed out that he barely even contacts her. As she spoke, Hyungjin bluntly offered his own theory, a guy like that is probably married and cheating. As Minjong offered to set her up with someone better if she ever broke up with her boyfriend, the restaurant door chimed. Haiwan looked up and froze, instantly recognizing the person walking in. A wave of dread washed over her. She knew she was caught. Jaehyun, dressed in a sharp suit, approached their table with an imposing calm. He placed his hand firmly on the table and introduced himself as Haiwan's boyfriend. His sudden appearance and confident declaration left her friends completely stunned and silent. With a disarming smile, Jaehyun calmly explains that urgent business has kept him from caring for Haiwan. He then asks if he can take her with him. Realizing he must have heard everything, Haiwan quickly stands, apologizing to her friends that she has to leave. A worried Hyungjin asks if she's truly okay, but Jaehyun intercepts. Placing a firm hand on Hyungjin's shoulder, he confidently tells him not to worry, making it clear the discussion is over. His plan to catch her was a success. Haiwan puts on a bright smile, apologizing to her friends as Jaehyun guides her out of the restaurant. The moment they are alone, his friendly act disappears. His thoughts turn dark as he considers dealing with Hyungjin permanently. He pulls Haiwan close, warning her to stay hidden from reporters as they rush to the car. Stunned by his coldness after their time apart, she questions his behavior. Jaehyun insists he is only protecting her from the vicious press, framing his intense control as a necessary sacrifice for her safety. Internally, Haiwan dismisses Jaehyun as hopeless. In a surprising move, she yanks him forward by his tie and gives him a quick kiss, leaving him completely stunned. Her anger then boils over. She confronts him about his hypocrisy, questioning how he could instantly appear when she was with Hyungjin, yet let her suffer by keeping secrets. She declares that if he truly cared, he would have told her everything from the beginning. Flustered, Jaehyun weakly insists he isn't hiding anything, but his defense is unconvincing after her bold accusation. Haiwan finally confronts him about the shoe bag, a painful memory from a decade ago. She asks how he could hide such a critical piece of their past, confirming that he remembered it all along. Visibly shaken, Jaehyun covers his mouth, but his shock quickly melts away. A confident smile replaces his surprise as he realizes she remembers everything. Instead of answering, He calmly suggests they continue this serious discussion at home, steering the conversation back to his territory and his terms. The scene changes to his high-rise apartment. Back at his apartment, Joo-hyun pulls Haewon onto his lap, gently stroking her hair. He asks if she is truly upset that he hid their past, explaining he thought it was a bad memory for her. Haewon clarifies she isn't mad, merely disappointed by his constant secrecy. She admits she wants to know him better, but he keeps everything bottled up. Joo-hyun promises to be completely honest from now on. He then confesses he thought she'd forgotten that day. Indignant, she asks how she could forget finding him in such a dire state. His confidence returns with a smirk as he smugly states he's pretty unforgettable. Joo-hyun is clearly pleased with himself, smugly noting that Haewon has a good memory. As she blushes, he leans in close, cupping her face. He tells her that if she's still upset, he'll just have to love her until those feelings melt away. Before she can protest, he cuts her off with a gentle but firm gesture. He whispers that tonight, they will make up for all the time they have missed. With his intentions made clear, he leaves her with no room to object to his plans for the evening.